Chapter 790. The dead could not come back to life. Moreover, they did not have any deep feelings for the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man. They were not even friends, so they naturally would not feel sad. Since they were already dead, the treasure still had to be divided. What was undeniable was that with the two dead, each of them would get a bigger share of the treasures. Everyone's emotions were complicated. Clearing his throat, Jin Wanshuang said, "Right now there are 9 of us left. Lady Murong will get 20% of the treasures and we will each get 10%. Now let's break the formation and count the upper-grade spirit stones." As he spoke, Jin Wanshuang arrived before the spirit lock array. A silver light overflowed from his palm as Jin Wanshuang's palm slammed into the void. A ring of light yellow light blossomed in the void. It was the light of the spirit lock array. As Jin Wanshuang's palm slammed down, the array's light fluctuated, dimming and brightening at times. Jin Wanshuang had long since had experience in this aspect. His palm pressed against the array's light and swiped horizontally. The spirit lock array was broken, and the dense spirit chi within the array was released, spreading out in all directions. In an instant, the entire palace was filled with spirit chi, making it slightly moist. Hee. The twin brothers could not help but smile. The previous battle had made them extremely satisfied, and now there was so much wealth waiting for them. Life's happiness was nothing more than this. Just like the twin brothers, everyone revealed a knowing smile. The killing intent left over from the great battle also vanished like smoke in thin air. As for the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man's deaths, they had long since forgotten about them. At this moment, no one was thinking about them. All they were thinking about was how many high-grade spirit stones they could get. Everyone start counting. Jin Wanshuang nodded to everyone. With their powerful soul power, everyone's counting speed was extremely fast. In just a short while, everyone had finished. I have 81 million here. I have 75 million here. 84 million. Apart from the indifferent young man who was still recovering from his injuries, the 8 of them added up to a total of 648 million, which was more than 100 million more than the 500 million. This was definitely a great harvest. Even if they did not gain anything from this, it was still a rewarding trip. Jin Wanshuang said with a smile, "A total of 648 million. 10% is 64,800,000. Lady Murong will take 20%, so it will be 129,600,000. Now everyone can take your share. Don't take more but don't take less either. It's more than I imagined." Yi Chen's upper-grade spirit stones had already surpassed 30 million, reaching a total of 36 million. With the addition of 64,800,000, he had over 100 million. Such a huge amount of wealth was something even the majority of 6th-grade sects couldn't compare to. If not for the upper-grade storage ring he had obtained in the Blackwater Alliance's crystal vault, a mid-grade storage ring wouldn't have been able to store so many upper-grade spirit stones. Murong Qingqing's harvest was the most. This was all thanks to her dark force field, which allowed her to obtain 2 portions of the wealth. After collecting their own upper-grade spirit stones, everyone's gazes fell on the 7 chests of energy crystals. The distribution of energy crystals was a bit complicated, because there were too many types of energy crystals and everyone's needs were different. However, energy crystals were the same as spirit stones, and could also be used for cultivation. For example, for those who cultivated fire Zhenyuan, using fire energy crystals to cultivate would have a better effect than using spirit stones of the same grade. Moreover, it could increase the destructive power of the fire Zhenyuan, as well as contain more fire attribute energy. First, let's count how many energy crystals we have. Jin Wanshuang frowned and said. Soon, the number of energy crystals was also counted. There were 70,000 upper-grade energy crystals in total, 10,000 per chest. Among them there were 8,000 gold energy crystals, 10,000 wood energy crystals, 12,000 water energy crystals, 11,000 fire energy crystals, 13,000 earth energy crystals, 7,000 wind energy crystals, 5,000 thunder energy crystals, 2,000 light energy crystals, 2,000 dark energy crystals. There were energy crystals of all 9 major attributes, and the quantity varied according to their rarity. The rarest ones were naturally light and dark. Jin Wanshuang said, 70,000 energy crystals divided equally among the 9 of us. Each of us will get 7,777 crystals. I cultivate metal element Zhenyuan, and I don't see anyone cultivating metal element Zhenyuan in the team. Thus, I will take 7,777 metal element crystals. I want 2,000 dark energy crystals. The rest doesn't matter. Murong Qingqing also said. Yi Chen said, I don't care about any energy crystals. The Zhen Yuan he cultivated did not contain any attribute, and was the purest Zhen Yuan. In this way the distribution was much easier. Among the 9, there weren't many who cultivated attributed Zhen Yuan. Moreover, they didn't overlap, so there was no conflict between them. Yi Chen took a bit of each attributed energy crystal. Even if he didn't cultivate, he could still use these crystals as a form of wealth. After distributing the energy crystals, there was nothing left in the palace. Alright, the distribution is done. Everyone can rest here for a while and heal your injuries, Jin Wanshuang said. Among the 9, the one with the heaviest injuries was the cold-faced youngster, followed by Lin Yushuan. Jin Wanshuang and Shi Xiaobao had also suffered some light injuries. The remaining 6 were not injured, but they needed to replenish their Zhen Yuan. At this moment, time was not pressing, so no one wasted precious pills. Instead, they sat cross-legged to recover their Zhen Yuan. Half a day later, apart from the cold-faced youngster, everyone had recovered to their peak state. A day later, the cold-faced young man also stopped healing. His injuries weren't something that could be healed in a short period of time. However, with the help of precious medicinal pills, he was almost fully recovered. He didn't want to waste everyone's time, so he stopped healing. Let's go. Jin Wanshuang waved his hand and walked out of the palace. There were 2 paths outside the palace, one to the left and the other to the right. Everyone chose the path on the right. Following the path, they gradually arrived at the core of the ruins. The surroundings were filled with layers of buildings and the atmosphere was gloomy. Murong Qingqing suddenly whispered into Yi Chen's ear, I saw a blurry shadow just now. It wasn't an illusion. Oh. Yi Chen was moved, even ignoring the hot breath that Murong Qingqing blew into his ear. While walking, Yi Chen pondered for a while, then said, I don't know what happened here, but I don't think it was anything good. The fall of the True Water Palace is most likely related to this, and the ruins have become an ominous place. Should we tell them? Murong Qingqing asked. Yi Chen shook his head and said, even if we tell them, they will not leave. After all, exploring ruins is a dangerous thing. How could they be scared by a blurry shadow? Telling them now will only make them feel uneasy. Yi Chen used his soul eyes so he could naturally see the blurry shadow as well. However, under normal circumstances he could not sense where the shadow was. Murong Qingqing was different. She cultivated demon power, and she had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, so she was very sensitive to dark things. Among the group, only Murong Qingqing could sense the shadow watching them. Yeah, that makes sense. Murong Qingqing nodded. Alright, no matter if the shadow is a human or a ghost, it will be exposed one day. At that time, we will act according to the situation. Yi Chen was not too afraid of this kind of evil being. His destruction sword intent and immortal sword intent were not to be trifled with, and were specialized in dealing with formless evil beings. The road was full of twists and turns, and before long, they had passed through a series of buildings and arrived in front of a magnificent, cold, and dignified tower. The base of this tower was more than 10 times the size of an ordinary manor. It was 1,000 meters tall and had a total of 33 floors. It was like a giant's tower. This tower was also the tallest building in the ruins. On the door of the tower's first floor, 3 words were carved, Mysterious Yin Tower. Mysterious Yin Tower. Could this ruin be the residence of the True Water Palace's Life and Death King? Jin Wanshuang guessed. At its peak, True Water Palace had 1 titled monarch and 13 life and death kings. Its reputation was like a rainbow, like the sun in the midday sky. As a life and death king, his position was naturally the most respected. Controlling a faction was nothing out of the ordinary. The mysterious Yin King is already dead. There must be all of his wealth in this tower. The brother Daer Xiong laughed heartily. The old man said, whether it's mysterious Yin King or not, we can't be sure. However, the Yin Qi in this tower is too dense. It's almost the densest place in this ruin. It's very ominous. If you're afraid, you can leave. I have to enter this tower no matter what. Daer Ba was the same as his brother, not knowing what fear was. This old man has lived for a long time. How could I be afraid of death? I just don't want to die in vain. The old man didn't lower himself to Daer Ba's level. Lin Yushuan said at this moment, the tower contains great treasures. This is 80 to 90% certain. I'll definitely go in and take a look. Otherwise this trip would be a waste. Lin Yushuan was also a person with great fortune. The reason why he could have the strength he had today was because he had many fortunes and obtained many treasures. Therefore, in his eyes, the mysterious Yin Tower was a land of treasures. As for the danger, that was normal. Without danger, there was no value in exploring this place. Everyone. As the nominal leader of this team, Jin Wanshuang spoke, the mysterious Yin Tower is basically the most valuable place in this ruin, and the reason we came here is also for the treasures. I agree to enter this tower. If there is anyone who doesn't agree, you can wait outside, or you can explore other places on your own. Jin Wanshuang had made his stance clear. Everyone knew that they had to enter. If they stayed outside, what if they ran into other people? As for exploring other places, it would be even more dangerous if they went alone. After all, everyone could see that this place was not a peaceful place. Therefore, no matter how dangerous the tower was, entering was an inevitable choice. As for other situations, they could think about it later. Chapter 791. The door of the tower was filled with evil qi as if it was the door to hell. Vaguely, there was an extremely cold and ominous qi. Even if Sea of Souls realm warriors stood in front of the tower, they would not be able to help but shiver, not to mention going in. But it did not include the 9 of them. They were not only half-step king warriors, but also almost invincible among them. Unless it was a life and death realm warrior, it would not be easy for anyone to kill them and they would have to pay for it. Although they did not like this ominous qi, they were not afraid of it. The road to life and death realm was already rough and full of danger. How could a mere ominous qi scare them? Crack. Pushing open the door, the 9 walked in. After the 9 entered, the door closed automatically, letting out a sound that seemed to come from the underworld. Swoosh. When the 9 of them first entered, the first floor was as dark as ink, so dark that they couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. However, very quickly, the sound of burning flames could be heard. With the 9 of them as the starting point, 2 rows of faint green flames lit up, sticking to the walls and extending into the distance. Not long after, the first layer was shrouded in a faint green light. It was neither bright nor dim, only icy cold. Yi Chen casually glanced at the flames. Suddenly, his pupils shrank as he said word by word, "These flames are lit from the white skulls." What? Hearing him, everyone looked toward the nearest flames. On the wall, a rusty chain was holding a white skull. There was a hole on top of the skull, which was the Baihui meridian. A beam of flame was released from inside, burning steadily. Because the flame was not that bright, and the light was directed outward, the surface of the wall was still pitch black, which was hard to see through with naked eyes. Therefore, the white skull was naturally not that eye-catching. At this moment, with Yi Chen's reminder, everyone finally noticed this detail, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. White skulls lighting up. This is an extremely evil method. The elder frowned as he looked around from time to time. Lin Yushuan said, "Could it be that the True Water Palace is an evil sect? That's why it has fallen silently after provoking the wrath of the heavens?" There's no way to prove it. But judging from the current situation, it's quite possible. Perhaps the True Water Palace tried to use some forbidden technique and triggered a terrible backfire. Jin Wanshuang pondered. Alright, who cares about the skeletons lighting up the lantern? Evil sects. We're not here to judge the quality of the True Water Palace. We're here for treasures. The twins were getting impatient. That's true. Let's continue. Jin Wanshuang took a step forward. About an hour after the 9 of them entered the mysterious Yin Tower, a group of acquaintances arrived outside the tower. This group of acquaintances was Shi Xiaobao and the others. After they were teleported out of the palace, they rested for 2 days before heading to the mysterious Yin Tower, the tallest building in this ruin. They were 1 step slower than Yi Chen and the others. Why is this mysterious Yin Tower filled with Yin Qi? The middle-aged woman said hesitantly. Don't follow us if you're scared. Shi Xiaobao led the group and pushed open the door of the tower without hesitation and walked in. The middle-aged woman bit her teeth and followed them. The first 18 floors of the tower were empty. Yi Chen and the others went straight to the 19th floor, which was much more sinister than the 18 floors below. Waves of cold wind blew over from nowhere, making everyone's hair stand on end. Everyone be careful. Jin Wanshuang's voice came from the front. Yeah, the Yin Qi here is even more intense and there are strange vibrations coming from time to time. Don't be careless. The elder was the most cautious one in the team, but it was not because he was afraid of death. People who were afraid of death were not necessarily cautious, and those who were cautious mostly did not want to die in vain. The twin brother Dare Xiong said, "It is not that I am arrogant and want to mess with you guys, but I think we do not need to worry about anything at all. We are almost invincible below the life and death realm. Only life and death realm warriors would be able to kill us. Of course, if we run into them, it would be our bad luck. No matter how cautious we are, it would be pointless. Besides them, I cannot think of anyone who could kill this many of us at once. The elder felt that these two little bastards were thinking too highly of him, so he could not help but say, "Then what about the top half-step king warriors? If they want to kill you, it should not be hard, right?" Dare Xiong froze, unable to say anything for a while. Although they were all considered to be invincible below life and death realm in their own territories, there was still a gap between them and the top half-step king warriors, because the top half-step king warriors were invincible below life and death realm. If a top half-step king warrior wanted to kill any one of them, it would not be too hard. Dare Xiong explained, although the top half-step king warriors could kill me, they would not be able to take on all of us at the same time. Then do you think there would only be one enemy? The elder sneered. Seeing the two start bickering, Yi Chen faintly smiled. The old man's worry was not without reason. Although they were elites of Four Corner Island, if they encountered a strongest half-step king, they would not be able to win. Apart from a strongest half-step king, there were too many things that could kill them. For example, some mysterious traps, some strange poisons, and some destructive energies could all kill them. The reason why the twin brothers were so fearless was probably because they thought that with their powerful bodies, they would not have to worry about ambushes. "Alright, you guys are really annoying." Lin Yuxuan could not stand this kind of argument anymore, so he said with a low voice. On the 19th floor there was no danger at all. On the 20th floor? On the 27th floor? Damn. There is nothing here. Don't tell me there is nothing up there as well. After another 7 floors, everyone still did not encounter anything. There was neither treasure nor danger, so it was very boring. At this moment, everyone would rather have a little bit of danger. At least they would not have nothing to do. Before they knew it, they had already reached the 32nd floor, which was only one wall away from the highest floor. And on the 32nd floor, something finally appeared. On top of a square stone platform, there were 4 items. A great sword, a demonic staff, a purple gold bowl, and a jade ruler. Besides that, there was also an ink painting right next to the 4 items. It was half open and seemed to be drawing a human figure. Great item. Everyone's eyes brightened. The mysterious Yin Tower had completely disappointed them. They thought that this place might not have mountains of treasures, but at least there would be some. However, they didn't see a single treasure on the way. From the 1st floor to the 31st floor, it was completely empty, and the place was full of Yin Qi. Right then, seeing the 4 great items on the stone platform, everyone's mind started to work, and the way they looked at each other became more unfriendly. There were only 4 great items, and being able to be on the 32nd floor meant that they were not normal items. But there were 9 people here, so no matter how they divided them, it would not be fair. In that case, there was only one way to solve this problem. Yi Chen sensed the change in the atmosphere, so he said, "We do not know the rank of the great items yet. There is no need to fight to the death." Chapter 792. The 4 items on the stone platform had all hidden their power. From the outside, it was impossible to tell what rank they were. However, since they were placed on the 32nd floor of the tower, they should not be lower than demi-extreme rank items. With Yi Chen's guess, they might even be pseudo-extreme rank items. Of course, before confirming the rank, it would be a bit impatient to make such a big fuss about it. He is right. Jin Wanshuang took a deep breath, his eyes calming down. Then how do we confirm the rank of the items? I do not trust other people to do it. Even if we want to confirm it, I will have to do it myself. Lin Yuxuan said. Yeah, who knows if the first one to confirm it would take it for himself or not. Although he would not dare to take all of them, but if he could take 1 or 2 and leave the tower while everyone else is fighting for the rest of the items, no one would be able to do anything to him. Dare Xiong's thoughts were not as simple as they looked. Very simple. We will attack the items from afar, and the items will release their own power to block out the attack. The items had their own power as well, but it was passive and could not attack on its own. However, if it was attacked, it would still activate its own power to block out the attack. Yi Chen said lightly. Alright, let's do that. Yi Chen's suggestion was approved by everyone. Let me do it. Jin Wanshuang stood out, his right fist tightened as he threw out a punch. Oh. A light exploding sound appeared in the air as that unstoppable fist power shattered the square stone platform. The aggressive chi attack landed on the walls of the tower and bounced back, blowing the 4 items and the painting into the air of the 32nd floor. Oh, 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 oh. The great sword, the evil falling stick, the purple gold bowl, and the jade ruler all released a powerful aura, shining with different colors. Among them, the sword was shining with a red light, the evil falling stick was gold, The purple gold bowl was purple gold and the jade ruler was pure white. The four colors interweaved together, and the air of the entire tower's 32nd floor became as sticky as water. The strange thing was that the paper of the ink wash painting was made of some unknown material. Under the impact of the precious weapon's power and the violent chi, it was not damaged at all. It also did not emit any light. It was just that the ink wash painting, on the other hand, was completely opened up by the external force. It was a picture of climbing high and looking far away. Pseudo-extreme grade artifacts, all four of them. Everyone was breathing heavily. Boom. Almost at the same moment when everyone confirmed the grade of the artifacts, an intense cyan energy whirlwind appeared. Lin Yushuan's eyes turned red as his Zhen Yuan burst out, producing a powerful destructive power. It instantly shattered the space solidification created by the power of the four pseudo-extreme grade artifacts, then shot out like a sharp arrow with an unstoppable momentum. How dare you steal our treasures? The twin brothers roared as their muscles tightened. Their skin shone with a solid light as they bent their knees and bounced out like two gorillas. Their speed was not much slower than Lin Yushuan's. At the same time they took out their own weapons ready to fight at the critical moment. The three reacted fast but the others were not slow either. Jin Wanshuang's body shone with a silver light as he turned into a metal man, following closely behind. His body and his fists were his weapons, and his eyes were just like metal, cold and emotionless. The elder's movement art was fast and agile. As his black robe spread out, he looked like a huge bat. At this moment he would not let go of the treasure. Whoever dared to stop him would not be able to blame him for being merciless. Meanwhile, the girl in yellow that Yi Chen could not see through frowned slightly. She actually crossed her arms in front of her chest and took a step back. She did not plan to fight for the artifact. Just like the girl in yellow, the cold-looking teenager did not go up to fight for the artifact either. He seemed to think that he did not have much hope since he had not fully recovered yet. Of course, this was just what the others thought. In fact, deep down in his heart he was more afraid of Yi Chen. The weapon he wanted was that great sword with a red light. However, Yi Chen was also a sword artist. When the two met, there would definitely be a battle. Right now he could not compete with Yi Chen. Yi Chen, I am not going. You should go now. Murong Qingqing frowned and shook her head. Yi Chen studied the girl in yellow, then looked at Murong Qingqing. He seemed to have understood something, so he said, "All right." A pair of sword wings appeared on his back. Yi Chen's body flashed like a beam of sword light flashed through the sky, catching up to the 5 people in front of him. Lin Yushuan was the first one to fight for the artifact after all. He reached out his hand, wanting to grab the only long weapon among the 4 artifacts. Let go. The twin brothers also had their eyes on the evil weapon. The older brother, Dare Xiong, waved his huge axe and hacked towards Lin Yushuan. Damn it. Lin Yushuan had no choice but to raise his bronze halberd to block the attack. His whole body was blown away. Brother, I will help you. You go get it. Dare Xiong said to Dare Ba. All right. Dare Ba growled and jumped towards the evil weapon. Forgive me. This evil weapon is also my first choice. Jin Wanshuang, who had turned into a silver metal man, threw a punch at Dare Ba. If you want to pass this, ask me. Dare Xiong blocked in front of him and raised his axe, blocking the fist power. Hee, I only want that purple gold bowl. The elder smiled slightly and set his eyes on the purple gold bowl above the evil weapon. With his movement art, he would be able to get it within a second. In your dreams. Although Lin Yushuan wanted the evil weapon more, it did not mean that he could ignore the other great artifacts. He stabbed out dozens of times with his bronze halberd, and a green dragon roared. Dang! The weathered old man and Lin Yushuan clashed head-on. The shockwave rippled out, forcing everyone to take a step back. The 4 artifacts and the standing tall gazing painting also flew up into the air, messing up their order. At this moment, a streak of sword light flashed past, heading for the tower view painting, and the treasured sword that was glowing red. Brat, stop. Dareba was almost about to get the staff, but who would have thought that after the shockwave the staff would be blown away again? Seeing that Yi Chen was about to get the great sword in the painting, he grinned and waved his 2 blades, throwing out 2 beams of blade light. Shadow explosion. His body exploded in the air as Yi Chen turned into countless shadows and spread out. The blade light flashed, killing a huge amount of shadows. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's real body was only a couple of steps away from the painting. Wind chasing 18 strikes. Dare Ba's attack missed, and the elder's attack followed up. The black short stick in his hand created countless shadows, attacking towards Yi Chen. Ding, 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 Yi Qin and the elder exchanged dozens of attacks, but neither of them could do anything to the other. All of a sudden, the 32nd floor of the tower turned into a mess. The 6 people who were fighting for the great weapons did not want the other to get it, so they attacked each other. Sometimes, even though they were like fire and water, they would still join hands to attack each other. Human nature is evil. Leaning against the wall of the tower, the lady in yellow sneered. Murong Qingqing said, "You don't want to fight for the great weapons because they have the evil destroying qi, which is not compatible with your beast power, right? I train the beast power and you don't train Jin Yuan. If I am not wrong, you should have the perfect demi-demon bloodline of the demi-demon race. You train the famous demi-demon power which makes you more sensitive to the evil destroying qi. Same to you." Murong Qingqing was not surprised that she knew her identity. She did not plan to hide anything anyway. The demi-demon race comes from the demons and they like the dark side. Why are you with him? His sword qi is righteous and unbreakable, which is not compatible with your demon power. The lady in yellow blinked her eyes and asked curiously, "Then tell me, where did the demi-demon race come from?" Murong Qingqing asked back. The lady in yellow could not help but laugh. The human devil clan was naturally the result of intermarriage between a member of the devil race and a member of the human race. Since members of the devil race could marry with members of the human race, it was not strange for a member of the perfect devil bloodline to marry with a human. While the two were talking, the cold-looking youngster was sitting in the corner of the 32nd floor, calmly healing his wounds. This kind of unmoved state of mind was extremely rare. If it were someone else, they would have already been tempted by the 4 pseudo-extreme grade artifacts, even if they knew they could not get them. He is very powerful. When he came, no one expected it. The yellow-robed woman scanned the crowd and soon Yi Qin caught her attention. In terms of strength, Yi Qin was indeed not weaker than anyone else. It should be known that among everyone present, Yi Qin had the lowest cultivation base, only at peak late Sea of Soul realm. His power has not been used yet. Murong Qingqing said lightly. Oh. The lady in yellow glanced at Murong Qingqing. "Brother Yi, your power is not bad, but you are still a bit weaker than me." The 4 weapons overlapped with each other, bringing the battle to its climax. Among them, Jin Wanshuang and Yi Qin, who were the closest to each other, started to battle. Jin Wanshuang was one of the most powerful warriors in the team. Besides the lady in yellow who was slightly more powerful than everyone else, no one else seemed to be more powerful than him. His whole body shone with a bright silver light as he attacked toward Yi Qin like a silver metal man. Let's take out the weakest one first. Lin Yushuan rolled his eyes and also set his target on Yi Qin. No matter if it was for business or personal reasons, he felt that he should take out Yi Qin first. In terms of business, Yi Qin's cultivation was the weakest. Although his power was not weak, his protective Jin Yuan was still a lot weaker, which would not give him an advantage. In terms of personal reasons, the relationship between Yi Qin and Murong Qingqing annoyed him a bit. It was the jealousy that men were born with. Therefore, making sure that Yi Qin could not get any great items would make him feel better. Raising his bronze battle halberd, Lin Yushuan also attacked toward Yi Qin. Then us 2 brothers will also join in the fun. The twin brothers seemed to be careless, but they were actually very shrewd. 6 people were fighting for the weapons, and after 1 person was taken out, there were only 5 left, which made the difficulty much lower. The elder did not dare to snatch the weapons at this moment, fearing that he would anger the crowd and turn against him. With his power alone, he would definitely be heavily wounded. Seeing that the others were going to attack Yi Qin, he was naturally happy to do so. The black short staff shot out a staff shadow, attacking toward Yi Qin. All of a sudden the 5 attacked Yi Qin together. Shameless. Murong Qingqing was enraged. It seems like I have to use that move. Yi Qin was helpless. He did not expect that this move would be forced out by his own people. Chapter 793. Fighting 1 against 5, none of the moves that Yi Qin had used before would be useful. Only the bewitching mirror shattering created from the space profound would be useful. The bewitching mirror shattering could condense the air into a mirror, and its attacking range could be big or small. It was a move that had no weaknesses. Although the bewitching mirror shattering was only 70 to 80% complete, it should be enough to deal with 5 experts at the same level as him. Holding the Thunder Disaster Sword with both of his hands, Yi Qin instantly entered a calm and tranquil state. His eyes looked far away as if the entire void was under his control. Meanwhile, the Thunder Disaster Sword in his hand suddenly twisted and disappeared from everyone's sight. Perhaps it was just a moment or maybe it was a long time, but Yi Qin waved out that seemingly slow but actually fast sword, causing the entire void to shake. Not good. The five of them screamed in their hearts at the same time. The space profound was too profound, and it had a mysterious connection with the time profound. Before Yi Qin waved out that sword, they already felt that time had slowed down a lot. It was so much so that their attacks were slowly approaching Yi Qin. When Yi Qin waved out that sword, time seemed to have frozen in their perception. Other than their thoughts, even their own movements had slowed down. Their hands and feet were tied, and their hearts were filled with panic. Their battle intent had dropped to a freezing point. Different from the five, the yellow-robed woman, Murong Qingqing, and the cold-looking young man who had opened his eyes could clearly see that Yi Chen's sword had reached an extreme speed. It was obviously the five of them who had attacked first, but it was Yi Qin who had attacked first. Different positions, different sensations. This was the change brought about by the space profound. Without a sound, the void where the five of them were started to twist without any pattern. The five of them seemed to be in the same mirror, and their expressions kept changing. This mirror could shatter at any moment, and the five of them would naturally not be able to escape. Should I kill them? Yi Qin was a bit hesitant. Suddenly, in the mirror, Jin Wanshuang's position exploded, and illusory glass shards shot out in all directions. Jin Wanshuang, who was covered in silver light, spurted out a mouthful of blood and flew out with a pale face. Soon after, the weathered old man and the twin brothers broke free at the same time. Their faces were pale and filled with terror. The last one was Lin Yuxuan. Whether it was Zhen Yuan cultivation base, physical strength, or experience, he could not compare to the other four. The only reason he could come out was because the frozen mirror had a flaw. Even so, his injuries were extremely severe. Blood flowed out from all 7 of his orifices, and his body had been cut dozens of times by the illusory glass, dyeing his clothes red. Attacking 5 people at once is a bit of a stretch. Yi Qin was not surprised. Bewitching mirror shattering could kill any one of them, but attacking all 5 at once was a bit difficult. After all, these 5 were not ordinary people but 5 experts on the same level as him. If it wasn't for the bewitching mirror shattering containing the profound of space being too strange and frightening, how could it have almost killed them? How is this possible? Is space profound? How did it reach such a horrifying level? Jin Wanshuang still had lingering fear as he stared at Yi Qin blankly. Not only is the space profound this powerful, but this sword art created based on it is also too frightening. No matter how you look at it, there is no weakness at all. How could this be created by a young man? Compared to Jin Wanshuang, the elder was even more shocked by Yi Chen's creativity. Creating profound sense martial arts was a talent that was just as important as learning profound sense. The same space profound and the same realm might not have the same power, which was the importance of creativity. Although power was not everything and some profound sense martial arts did not focus on power, no matter what, Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering had shocked the elder. The twin brothers who had always been fearless were also shocked. Derba said, "He actually wounded us too. Is he a strongest, half-step king warrior? Even if he is not, he is almost there. It is a bit different." Derxiang had thought more than Derba. Just based on this attack alone, even a strongest, half-step king warrior would have to avoid it. But, in other aspects, Yi Qin was a lot weaker than them. What? Lin Yuxuan was confused. He could not understand how Yi Qin, who was only a couple of years younger than him, could comprehend the space profound and create such a powerful sword art. With just one sword attack, he had made them lose the confidence to fight him. Condensing the air into a mirror. Good move. The lady in yellow sighed. The cold-looking young man hid away the shock on his face as he once again entered his healing mode. But this time it took him a long time to calm down. The space profound is 3 times more powerful than the normal profound, but it requires 9 times more Jin Yuan to use. It seems like I have to become a half-step king warrior as soon as possible. Only then will I have enough Jin Yuan to use. Otherwise, if I run into a powerful enemy, I will not be able to use it that many times. Letting out a breath, Yi Chen's body flashed, flying toward the painting and the great sword that was shining with red light. He was determined to get these 2 things. Seeing this, the 5 gritted their teeth. Although they could not compete with Yi Qin, if Yi Qin wanted to take all the treasures they would have to try. After all, these were pseudo-extreme rank weapons. If they missed it this time they would not know when they would get to see them again. The 5 stared at Yi Qin with a complicated expression. The painting was taken over by Yi Qin and thrown into his storage ring. Then Yi Qin grabbed the great sword that was shining with red light in his hand. Holding it in his hand, he saw 2 righteous and ancient characters carved on the sword's body, evil vanquishing. Good sword. Yi Chen could sense that the sword chi of the evil vanquishing sword was very righteous, which was very compatible with his sword art. There was no rejection at all. With the two treasures in his hand, Yi Chen started to study the other treasures. The evil vanquishing stick was more than 2 meters long, shining with a golden halo. It gave people a peaceful feeling, but also contained a horrifying evil vanquishing power. It was as if holding it in one's hand, one would not need to be afraid of any evil beings. Not far away from the stick was a purple gold bowl that was the size of a bowl. It looked like it was made from purple gold, but Yi Chen knew clearly that normal purple gold would not be able to make pseudo-extreme rank weapons. The last treasure was the jade ruler, which was pure white in color and 2.5 feet long. An auspicious beast was drawn on its surface, stepping on clouds and looking peaceful. Seeing Yi Chen studying the other great weapons, Jin Wanshuang and the other four started to get nervous. They did not want to fight with Yi Chen, but they would not give up on the great weapons either. Therefore they were very concerned about Yi Chen's choice. Would he give up on the great weapons? Or would he take all of them? Don't worry, I am not as greedy as you think. Yi Chen did not go for the last 3 great weapons. First, he had already gotten the painting and the evil vanquishing sword. Second, these 5 were not easy to mess with. If he pushed them too hard, they might fight to the death with him. He could not guarantee that he would not be able to kill all 5 of them at the same time. Third, even if he had the power, he would not be able to guarantee that he would not die. Third, even if he had the power, he would still give it to them. For him, those 3 great weapons would have to be traded anyway. It would be too much of a waste to keep them. Holding the evil vanquishing sword, Yi Chen flew to Murong Qingqing. Jin Wanshuang and the other 4 let out a breath at the same time. Their tense nerves finally relaxed as they looked at Yi Chen with a bit of gratitude. If it were them, they would most likely take them all in one go. After all, pseudo-extreme rank great weapons were extremely precious. Even if they did not need them themselves, they could leave them to the auction house and sell them. Or they could go to some high-class market and trade for what they wanted. Brother Yi, Jin Wanshuang apologized to you. Also many thanks. Jin Wanshuang held his fists together and said, Me too. The elder smiled bitterly. Yi Chen nodded slightly and did not say anything. In this world, the most important thing was still power. As for what these people were thinking, it did not matter. Getting rid of Yi Chen, this powerful enemy, the 5 started a new round of competition. Eventually, it was Jin Wanshuang who was a bit more skillful and got the evil subduing stick. Then the elder also got the purple gold bowl and left the battlefield. Lin Yushuan was alone, so how could he be an opponent for the twin brothers? The jade ruler was taken away by them, leaving him with nothing. Lin Yushuan was expressionless as he did not look at the others. Instead, he looked at the stairs from the 32nd floor to the 33rd floor. There might be more treasures up there. There was no soul mark left inside the evil shattering sword, so Yi Chen easily left his own mark on it. He then poured in his Zhen Yuan and gradually familiarized himself with some of the sword's functions. The evil shattering sword extended out a meter-long sword light, making a swishing sound. Murong Qingqing squinted her eyes and took 2 steps back uncontrollably. The evil shattering sword light made her a bit uncomfortable. This sword's evil shattering power is too powerful. I'm afraid it is the best of the 4 great weapons. No wonder you feel uncomfortable. Yi Chen put the sword back into its sheath and kept away the sword light. Swords were originally the most aggressive, evil subduing stick for subduing demons and devils, purple gold bowl for suppressing and collecting, and the jade ruler for defense. Its offensive power was not as powerful as the other 2. Yeah, I wonder who left it here. Murong Qingqing said. Yi Chen looked at the 33rd floor and said, I hope it is not what I think it is. Not only did the evil shattering sword not have a soul mark, even the stick, purple gold bowl, and the jade ruler did not have any. With these 3 treasures, Jin Wanshuang the elder and the twin brother Daer Xiong's power had increased drastically again. Even if they ran into a top half-step king warrior, they would be able to fight for a bit. Since you all have gotten your weapons, it is time to go to the 33rd floor. Right then the lady in yellow said. There are already 4 pseudo-extreme rank weapons on the 32nd floor. We have to go to the 33rd floor for sure. The twin brothers were not satisfied yet. Although the jade ruler was good, it did not fit their taste. If they could get 1 or 2 more powerful pseudo-extreme rank weapons, it would be even better. Let's go. Jin Wanshuang held the stick with both of his hands, his aura getting even more powerful. Letting out a breath, the cold-looking teenager stood up. His wounds had already recovered to 80%, and he would not just stand by and watch anymore. Chapter 794. Following the stairs, the 9 of them walked up to the 33rd floor. Lin Yuxuan was walking at the front. Under the attack of Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering, he had been wounded the most. But, different from the cold-looking young man, his wound was not one that went through his body. Therefore, after swallowing a precious pellet that he had prepared himself, he had almost recovered. As a half-step king warrior, some of the pellets that could heal wounds in a short period of time were still available to him. But, it was also because of this that the top-rank soul stones and treasures were even more important to him, since the consumption was way too high. Yi Chen had his evil shattering sword on his waist as he followed at the back with Murong Qingqing. The 33rd floor. I'm afraid it will not be that easy. Yi Chen had a feeling that the 4 pseudo-extreme rank evil shattering items and the painting were not just randomly placed on the 32nd floor. They must have some other purpose. The tower was full of evil qi and up until now no one had run into any danger. But this unknown 33rd floor might be full of danger. Yi Chen had given up on the other 3 evil shattering items because of this reason. After all, he could not control all 4 of them by himself. Even if he could, he would not be able to use their full power. And for Murong Qingqing and the Lady in Yellow, one had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, and the other was an unknown beast. Naturally, they would not be able to touch the evil shattering items. At the end of the stairs, everyone stopped. In front of them was a stone door. The surface of the stone door was engraved with complicated lines. These lines were of different colors and there were a total of 5 colors: gold, cyan, green, red, and yellow. The 5 colored lines intertwined with each other and finally converged at the center of the stone door. There was a groove there and there was a faint 5-colored light flickering, connecting the 5 colored lines. This is a 5 elemental spell. It needs 5 elemental energies to open. Jin Wanshuang had done some research on spells, so he said, "There are 9 of us here and only 3 of us have trained 5 elemental Zhenyuan. We cannot gather all 5 elemental energies." The elder frowned. Jin Wanshuang had trained metal element Zhenyuan, Lin Yuxuan had wood element Zhenyuan, and the lady in yellow had water element Zhenyuan. The remaining fire and earth element Zhenyuan would not be enough. Yi Chen said, "You should be able to use something else to replace it, right? Like energy crystals?" Jin Wanshuang nodded, "Indeed. Not all elemental Zhenyuan is needed. Elemental energy crystals will do as well." With that, Jin Wanshuang took a step forward and said, "I'll pour in metal Zhenyuan first and see how much is needed." Placing his right hand inside the groove, Jin Wanshuang circulated his Zhenyuan and slowly poured it in. As Jin Wanshuang poured in his metal attribute Zhenyuan, the golden lines on the stone door suddenly lit up and slowly extended. After a while, Jin Wanshuang said, "This won't do. This 5 elemental formation requires too much energy. Even if I use up all of my Zhenyuan, it won't be enough." Everyone realized that the golden lines on the stone door had only lit up by less than a tenth. It looked like it was still lacking 90%. Looks like I'll have to use energy crystals. The 5 elements formation required too much energy. Even if there were 5 people here who cultivated true essence of the 5 elements, it would not be enough. In other words, if the 9 of them had not obtained a large number of energy crystals, it would have been impossible for them to enter the 33rd floor. The others would not have been able to do it either. How about this? Everyone gather 900 metal energy crystals and 1000 wood, water, fire, and earth energy crystals respectively. The excess will be returned to everyone, and if it's not enough, everyone will make up for it. Energy crystals were extremely precious. 1 upper-grade energy crystal was equivalent to 1000 upper-grade spirit stones. Asking 1 or 2 people to provide it was obviously unfair. After gathering all the energy crystals, Jin Wanshuang threw them in. One could see that the groove at the center of the stone door could actively absorb the 5 elemental energy from the energy crystals. Meanwhile, the 5 colored lines on the stone door gradually lit up. With the groove as the center, they spread out in all directions, slow and steady. Not enough. Gather another 100 energy crystals for each element. Jin Wanshuang turned around and said. There was still a short section of the 5 colored lines on the stone door that had yet to light up. Here. Everyone gathered another 500 energy crystals, 100 for each element. Receiving the crystals, Jin Wanshuang threw them all in. Buzz. The 5 colored lines on the stone door all lit up, and the entire stone door shone with a 5-colored radiance. The radiance interweaved together, forming a complex 5 elements formation in the air. Rumble. The stone door opened with a sound. This 5 elements formation is indeed a glutton. It took 5,400 energy crystals. Derba made a face. 5,400 energy crystals would be equivalent to 5,400,000 top-rank spirit stones. Normal life and death realm warriors would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. According to the energy that the 5 elements formation had devoured, Yi Qin thought of something else. With the protection of this 5 elements formation, not to mention half-step king warriors, even normal life and death realm warriors would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. As for whether or not they would be able to tear open the surreal space and go in directly, he did not know. The stone door opened completely, and a wave of powerful evil wind blew out. Although the 9 of them had activated their protective Zhen Yuan, they were still blown back a couple of steps by this evil wind. The blood in their bodies seemed to have been frozen, and the coldness was so intense that it even threatened their souls. What the 9 of them did not know was that the second they opened the stone door, a 5-colored light beam shot out from the top of the tower. All of a sudden, it broke through the 300,000 meters deep ocean and arrived above the ocean. It then kept going up, tearing apart the surprising sky and the extreme void sky. No one knew where it would end up at. Within a radius of tens of thousands of miles, everyone could see this 5-colored beam of light that connected the bottom of the sea and the sky. Most of the people on Four Corner Island that were tens of thousands of miles away could also sense the fluctuations here. However, because they were too far away, they had no way of knowing where the fluctuations were coming from. 5 elements energy. Far away from the Four Corner Island, a black chi appeared, and the demi-demon king of the demi-demon race appeared. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed the vibration of the 5 elements energy coming from far away. This is the power vibration after the seal was broken. There must be some kind of great treasure appearing. The elder in black hesitated for a second, but he soon made up his mind to give up on looking for the perfect beauty demon bloodline for now. This kind of fortune could only be found by luck, so he would get the treasure first before looking for the bloodline. The black chi disappeared, and the elder in black disappeared from where he was standing. The 9 of them still did not know that their opening of the 5 elements spell had already attracted the attention of a demi-demon king. Right now they had already entered the 33rd floor. The moment everyone entered the 33rd level, all the always-on lamps lit up. At the same time, everyone's gazes fell on the 5 coffins in the center of the 33rd level. Of these 5 coffins, the one in the middle was the largest, and there were 4 smaller coffins surrounding it at its 4 corners. It was unknown what kind of wood the coffins were made of, but the evil chi coming out of them was very dense. Even from far away, one could feel that the evil chi was trying to invade their bodies and freeze their blood. There is a great item on each coffin. The twins' eyes brightened. If the items on the 32nd floor were all pseudo-extreme rank items, then what about the 33rd floor? Not to mention the others, just the one in the middle would most likely be an extreme rank item. Extreme rank item. Apart from Yi Qin and a few others, everyone else's eyes were burning with passion, wishing that they could rush over and snatch it. The first one to move was Lin Yuxuan. Among the 6 people fighting for the items on the 32nd floor, he was the only one who did not get one, which made him very unwilling. In the past he had always had a smooth sailing life. Whenever he joined a team he would be the most dazzling existence. However, in this team he realized that he was at the bottom. None of them were weaker than him, and there were even a few who were obviously stronger than him. This was something that he could not accept no matter what. His protective Zhen Yuan shone as Lin Yuxuan rushed toward the coffin closest to him. Don't be impulsive. Jin Wanshuang and the elder warned Lin Yuxuan at the same time. Lin Yuxuan sneered, but his speed did not decrease. Got it? With a flash, Lin Yuxuan appeared next to a coffin on the outer edge and grabbed the item on it. It was a battle halberd, one of the weapons he wanted the most. So cold. Grabbing the halberd, Lin Yuxuan suddenly shivered. This halberd seemed to be made from 10,000 years old black ice. An extremely cold yin chi flowed along his palm and extended to his arm. His entire right arm was covered in a thin layer of blue ice. It was bone-chilling. Boom. All of a sudden, the lid of the coffin in front of Lin Yuxuan flew up, as if someone had blasted it away from the inside. Shortly after, a silhouette sat up. It was a middle-aged man with an extremely pale face. His eyes were wide open, but there were no pupils, only the whites of his eyes. Not good. Lin Yuxuan knew that things had gotten serious, so he hurried to retreat. However, with the yin chi invading his body, his reaction speed was a bit slower. The middle-aged man's hand grabbed Lin Yuxuan's right arm and pulled. Ah! Lin Yuxuan screamed out. His entire right arm had been torn off, but there was no blood as it had all been frozen by the yin chi. After tearing off Lin Yushuan's right arm, the battle halberd landed in the middle-aged man's hand. He jumped out and waved the halberd in the air, cutting off Lin Yushuan's head. Resurrection of the dead? Yi Qin squinted his eyes, his hand gripping the handle of the evil vanquishing sword. The middle-aged man grinned, and an endless suction force burst out from his body. Lin Yushuan's warm blood spurted out from the cut on his neck and was sucked into the middle-aged man's mouth. As the blood flowed into his body, everyone noticed that the middle-aged man's face was a bit rosier. At least, his skin was not as pale as a dummy's, it was more elastic. Boom boom boom. The middle-aged man stood firmly on the ground. He waved his hand, and except for the coffin in the middle, the other 3 coffins were all blown away. The treasures on the coffins fell into the coffins. The next moment, a shocking scene occurred. In each of the 3 coffins a figure sat up. They were the evil old man, the stocky woman, and the skinny young man. The 3 of them held their respective treasures and jumped out of the coffins. They stood side by side with the middle-aged man. Endless yin qi erupted from their bodies, freezing everything. Chapter 795. How is this possible? People who have been dead for at least 10,000 years can still come back to life? This goes against the great Tao and cannot be tolerated by the heavens. The aged old man mumbled. Jin Wanshuang said, according to the records, True Water Palace was destroyed 15,000 years ago. In other words, these people have been dead for almost 15,000 years. 15,000 years. Even the bones of life and death kings would have turned into fossils by now. These 4 don't seem to be life and death kings. Yi Qin sized up the 4 with his soul eyes. He discovered that they didn't have Zhen Yuan or any other kind of energy on them, only yin qi that could freeze everything. This yin qi originated from their bodies and had already fused with their bodies. As long as the yin qi was not extinguished, their bodies would not perish. As for whether they had consciousness or not, only the heavens knew. The yellow-robed woman analyzed. They should have been sealed in a coffin by some kind of evil secret art. Although they are already dead, the vitality in their bodies is not extinguished. After 10,000 years of nurturing, they have already fused with the yin qi, becoming another kind of life form. Not a person, not a corpse, but another kind of life form? Everybody frowned. This was beyond their imagination. Stop acting mysterious. Watch me Daer Ba destroy them. Daer Ba stepped out and crossed his blades, slashing out a cross-shaped blade light at the leading middle-aged man. It was unknown whether the middle-aged man's reaction was too slow or Daer Ba's attack speed was too fast, but the cross-shaped blade light accurately struck his chest, leaving a cross-shaped wound. Hazy yin qi pervaded the wound, but no blood could be seen. Recovered. The aged old man mumbled. Everybody looked at the middle-aged man's wound. The hazy yin qi had turned into flesh and blood, healing the wound. From the outside, not a trace of it could be seen. The middle-aged man lowered his head and looked at his chest. It seemed that Daer Ba's cross-shaped blade light had awakened his consciousness. He then let out a long roar that sounded like a ghost's cry and a wolf's howl. The lamp on the 33rd floor was covered in a layer of frost. The light flickered, but it did not go out in the end. A formless sound wave spread out toward Yi Qin and the rest. Besides Yi Qin, Murong Qingqing and the yellow-robed woman, the others all groaned as their souls shook. They did not have Yi Qin's 5 times stronger soul power, his destruction sword spirit and immortal sword spirit, Murong Qingqing's perfect demi-demon bloodline, her demonic soul, and the yellow-robed woman's unfathomable power. Even with the soul membrane of a demi-king, it would be hard to defend against the sound wave. Without a sound, the middle-aged man disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Daer Ba. Holding the halberd, he stabbed towards Daer Ba's head. Piss off. Daer Ba did not expect the middle-aged man's speed to be this fast, so he was caught off guard. The barbarian's wild nature made him forget about life and death. He crossed his blades and attacked toward the middle-aged man's neck without caring about anything else. The two had started a battle of life and death. The middle-aged man's battle spear pierced through Daer Ba's protective Zhen Yuan layer and left a small bloody hole on his forehead. Daer Ba's blades had also almost cut off the middle-aged man's head. The crossed blade marks almost went through his chest. Brother? Daer Xiong roared as he held the axe in one hand and the jade ruler in the other, attacking toward the middle-aged man's body. The huge axe had only made a small crack on the middle-aged man's body, while the jade ruler seemed to melt some of his yin qi like snow in the spring. The middle-aged man looked shocked as he backed out hurriedly. Daer Xiong chased after him, waving his axe and jade ruler in the air, covering the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's body suddenly collapsed, turning into a hazy yin qi and returning to his original position, standing together with the other three. The wounds on his body had already healed completely. However, if one observed carefully, one could see that the yin qi was slightly thinner. The jade ruler can cut off his yin qi. Yi Chen came to a conclusion and exchanged a look with Murong Qingqing. Brother? Dare Xiong gave up on chasing the middle-aged man and returned to Dare Ba, shaking his body. Dare Ba's pupils were enlarged and his eyes were lifeless. On his forehead, there was a fingernail-sized bloody hole from which yin qi kept coming out. Dad. The elder shook his head in pity. That moment had passed too fast and they could not help in time. Fuck off. Dare Xiong cursed loudly and then burst into tears. I don't think we should stay here for long. The cold-looking young man frowned and said. The lady in yellow nodded. As long as the yin qi is not destroyed, their bodies will not be destroyed. Besides that, there is still a coffin that has not been opened. Dare Ba's body was extremely powerful, but it still could not block out the middle-aged man's attack. It was not hard to imagine how powerful the middle-aged man was. Of course, it was also related to the fact that the halberd was a pseudo-extreme rank item. Besides the four middle-aged men, the one in the middle coffin might be even more powerful. It might even be the body of the mysterious Yin King. I am afraid that we will not be able to get out. Murong Qingqing said suddenly. How could we not be able to get out? Everyone turned around. No one knew when, but the entrance to the 33rd floor had been sealed up by 4 coffin lids. The coffin lids were surrounded by yin qi. Boom. Jin Wan held the stick with both of his hands and threw out an attack. The golden light shone brightly and the coffin lids kept shaking. The yin qi was destroyed by the golden light. Damn it. The elder raised his purple gold bowl, and a beam of purple gold light shot out from the bowl, shining on the yin qi on the coffin lids. With a sizzling sound, the yin qi seemed to have met its nemesis and was destroyed. But what made them frown was that no matter how much yin qi was destroyed, there would always be an equal amount of yin qi pouring out of the coffin lids. It seemed like the lids were the source of the yin qi. During that time, Yi Chen took out his evil shattering sword and threw out a sword attack on the yin qi. The evil shattering sword was indeed the most powerful one among the 4 evil shattering items. A huge amount of yin qi was destroyed and it almost reached the coffin lids. But in the end it was too weak. Seeing Yi Chen and the rest attacking the coffin lids, the middle-aged man and the other 3 moved at the same time. They turned into blurry yin qi and attacked the group. If they did not defend, their blood might be frozen by the yin qi and they would be killed. Therefore the group had to give up on attacking the coffin lids and turned around to fight them. According to the previous situation, everyone already knew that the evil vanquishing treasures were the bane of this kind of evil beings. The 4 people with the evil vanquishing treasures all split up, each fighting one of them. The other 3 supported them from the side, wearing down their opponent's yin energy. His brother Dare Ba had been killed, so Dare Xiong hated the middle-aged man to the bone. He put away his huge axe and crazily attacked him with his jade ruler. The one helping him was the cold-looking youngster. On the other side, Jin Wanshuang was fighting against the bulky woman alone, while the elder and the yellow-robed lady were fighting against the evil elder. As for Murong Qingqing, she was naturally with Yi Chen fighting against the skinny youngster. Dark Devour. Murong Qingqing formed a seal with both of her hands, creating a black light ball that was continuously rotating beside the skinny youngster, trying to devour him. However, the yin qi on his body was too powerful, and it froze the black light ball instead. Whoosh. The skinny youngster turned into yin qi and attacked Murong Qingqing. Cut. With the evil shattering sword in his hand, Yi Chen took a step forward and threw out a sword attack at the yin qi. With a shoo sound, a lot of the yin qi was cut down, and the skinny youngster's body appeared again, fighting against Yi Chen once again. He had no time to deal with Murong Qingqing. The evil shattering sword and the weapon in the skinny youngster's hand were both pseudo-extreme rank items. One contained evil shattering power while the other contained evil power. They were like fire and water, but Yi Chen found out that no matter how much yin qi he took away from the skinny youngster, the 33 floors of the tower would still have yin qi to nourish him, making his efforts futile. Let me see how much yin qi you have. Yi Chen squinted his eyes as he waved the evil shattering sword in his hand to the extreme, performing the spiritual sword attack. In terms of battling techniques, how could the skinny youngster compete with Yi Chen? His body was cut into pieces by the sword qi, and he was at a complete disadvantage. Waning Moon. After throwing out hundreds of sword attacks in one breath, Yi Chen waved his arm, and a crescent-shaped sword chi flew out, slicing through the skinny youngster's body. The power of that sword attack was way too powerful, and the skinny youngster was cut in half. Half of his yin chi was gone, and his power was greatly reduced. Besides Yi Chen's side, the others were also starting to gain the upper hand. After all, they had evil-shattering items which could naturally suppress evil beings. If it were not for the fact that the opponent had yin chi to nourish him, he would have been beaten to a pulp already. Break! The evil-shattering stick in Jin Wanshuang's hand was extremely aggressive. It shattered half of the bulky woman's body, and a huge amount of gold light swept out. Collect! The elder held the purple gold alms bowl, and beams of purple gold light shot out, turning the evil elder in front of him into 1,000 holes. Occasionally, some of the yin chi would be sucked into the purple gold alms bowl and turned into nothingness. The heir Xiong's jade ruler could be used for protection. In close combat, the middle-aged man was not his opponent, and his yin chi was shaved off layer after layer by the jade ruler. As the yin chi in the tower became thinner and thinner, the coffin in the middle of the 5 coffins started to move without a sound. Since everyone was busy fighting, no one noticed it. The coffin lid did not move obviously, but it started to move inch by inch, and the movement was getting bigger and bigger. While the 7 of them were fighting, Shi Xiaobao and the rest were blocked by the coffin lid at the entrance. No matter how hard they tried, they could not move the coffin lid at all. Damn it! Shi Xiaobao, who had turned into his real body, roared and shot out a gold light at the coffin lid. With a rumbling sound, the 6 of them were blown back by the coffin lid's power, returning to the 32nd floor. Outside the mysterious Yin Tower, an elder in black robes appeared out of nowhere. His eyes looked at the top of the 33rd floor and his body suddenly disappeared. After a while he was jolted back again. I can't tear open the surreal space and enter. The elder in black revealed a surprised expression. Well, the more mysterious this tower is, the more precious the treasure is. The elder in black chuckled and stepped into the first floor of the tower, gradually disappearing into the darkness. Chapter 796. Bewitching Mirror Shattering. On the 33rd floor of the tower, Yi Chen had already used up 1/5 of the skinny teenager's evil chi. This 1/5 would not go down no matter what, since the teenager's recovery speed was only a bit slower than his own. Plus, Yi Chen would not be able to keep killing him for a long time, since the latter was very powerful and had a pseudo-extreme rank evil weapon. He would still be a threat to Yi Chen. Seeing that it would be hard to kill him with other methods, Yi Chen took advantage of the fact that the skinny teenager's evil chi was at its weakest and performed his space profound sword attack, Bewitching Mirror Shattering. As he waved out a sword attack, the space around the skinny teenager twisted. His whole body seemed to have been embedded in a mirror. Even if he turned into a hazy evil chi and tried to run around, he would not be able to get out. Boom. The mirror was shattered, and the skinny teenager was twisted into nothingness by the space power. Yi Chen squeezed his eyes. In his sight, a hazy shadow suddenly appeared. It was the skinny teenager. His body had already become so faint that it could not be seen with naked eyes. If it were not for Yi Chen's sharp eyes, he would not have been able to notice this change. The hazy shadow kept twisting and changing its shape, as if it was trying to return to its peak. But eventually, it failed and disappeared into nothingness. Finally dead. As long as the evil chi was not destroyed, the body would not be destroyed. It sounded powerful indeed, but as long as the opponent's evil chi was destroyed in a short period of time, he would not have enough power to absorb the evil chi around him. Then he would be able to kill him for good. Of course, it would be very hard if the power difference was not that big. Plus, he could not be hit by the opponent's attack. Once he was hit, the evil chi would invade his body, and that would be the end of him. Yi Chen was able to kill the skinny teenager because he had the evil shattering sword and the bewitching mirror shattering. Without any of them, he would not be able to succeed. Letting out a breath, Yi Chen glanced over and noticed Lin Yushuan's dead body not far away. Almost subconsciously, Yi Chen reached out his hand and sucked Lin Yushuan's storage ring over, then threw it into his own storage ring. Murong Qingqing leaned over and said, "This yin chi is really hard to deal with. It's not an ordinary yin chi, it seems to have a life of its own." Yi Chen said, "Vitality can give birth to life, such as wind spirits and thunder spirits. Yin energy should also be able to give birth to yin spirits and evil spirits. In some places where yin chi gathered, it was possible for evil spirits to be born. However, the strength of these evil spirits was not high. They could only cause trouble for low-level martial artists and ordinary people. If they encountered high-level martial artists, they would be helpless. However, the evil spirits that were born in some places with extreme yin qi were especially terrifying. The thin young man and the other three were not people, nor were they corpses. They might be a life form that had fused with the evil spirits. Yi Chen could kill the skinny youngster, but the other three couldn't. Although they had evil vanquishing artifacts, they didn't have the means to erase a large amount of yin qi in one go. From this, it could be seen how terrifying Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering was. Thunder Devour. From a great distance, Yi Chen shot out a lightning ball towards the bulky woman who was fighting against Jin Wanshuang. There was a loud bang. A huge amount of lightning shot out, and the bulky woman's body became a lot more illusory. This was the sign of consuming too much yin qi. Yi Chen's Thunder Devour contained a powerful thunder power, which was the bane of yin qi. On the other hand, the destruction sword intent was the bane of all things. Combined with the evil vanquishing sword's evil shattering power, its effect was not any weaker than bewitching mirror shattering, and might even be stronger. The reason why he didn't use it on the skinny youngster was because that was a head-on battle, and the latter had a pseudo-extreme rank evil artifact, which made the Thunder Devour ineffective. However, it was different now. This was a sneak attack. This was a rare opportunity. Jin Wanshuang's demon subduing pestle turned into beams of golden light as he threw out dozens of attacks at the bulky woman. The bulky woman couldn't even run away, and could only slowly erase her yin qi bit by bit, eventually following the skinny youngster's footsteps. Many thanks. Jin Wanshuang nodded at Yi Chen. With two dead, the remaining two were naturally nothing to worry about. Under the combined attacks of the four evil shattering artifacts, the four evil beings that were neither human nor corpses turned into ashes. It was worth mentioning that after the evil treasure in the opponent's hand lost its master, cracks appeared on it. Then with a bang it exploded, transforming into thick yin qi. The yin qi converged on the treasure on the lid of the coffin in the middle of the 33rd floor and then entered it. Things are not looking good. Only then did everyone realize that the lid of the coffin in the middle had moved quite a bit to the side, and a gap had been opened up. Open the exit quickly. The elder's hair stood on end as he held the purple gold alms bowl and turned around to attack the coffin lid. Beams of purple gold light shot out. The others did not say a word as they attacked the coffin lid with all of their power. Under the continuous attacks of the seven, the coffin lid kept on shaking, and the yin qi became chaotic. Right then, the lady in yellow's expression also turned serious as she took out a huge dark blue rapier from her storage ring. The aura coming from it was not any weaker than Yi Chen's evil shattering sword or the other evil shattering artifacts. It was obviously a pseudo-extreme rank artifact. Holding the rapier in her right hand, the lady in yellow yelled and threw out an attack onto the coffin lid. Rumble. The power of this attack was even more powerful than Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering. The intense dark blue light was like a sun that rose up slowly, evaporating a huge amount of yin qi. This is... Everyone looked at the lady in yellow with shock. She is a top, half-step king warrior. Murong Qingqing said with a low voice. Yi Chen nodded. She has hidden it well. With a pseudo-extreme rank artifact, even normal, top, half-step king warriors would not be able to compete with her. A pseudo-extreme rank artifact could increase one's power exponentially. The lady in yellow was already a top, half-step king warrior. With a pseudo-extreme rank artifact, she could be said to be unbeatable under the life and death realm. Unless the opponent was also a top half-step king warrior with a pseudo-extreme rank artifact, it would be impossible for them to compete with her. The coffin lid started to shake, and the gap between them was getting bigger and bigger. Right at that moment, the yin qi in the 33rd floor of the mysterious yin tower suddenly started spinning violently. Then, like a funnel, it poured into the coffin in the middle of the floor. Such a powerful sound made everyone's body feel cold. Their protective Zhen Yuan started to freeze. Hurry! Jin Wanshuang yelled. Boom, boom, boom. 5 different colored lights shone together. Right then, everyone did not hold back at all. Unfortunately, they were still one step too late. Boom. The lid of the coffin in the middle was blown away, and a blurry human figure appeared out of it. He reached out his right hand, grabbing the flying great weapon in the air. Yi Chen continued to attack as he looked back. He could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. It was out. This time, it was an expressionless elder in yellow robes. His clothes were torn and tattered, looking like they could be eroded at any second. He was holding a strange-looking weapon in his hand, which looked like 2 great swords that were placed side by side. There were 2 sword tips, and a cold sword light was shooting out of the 2 sword tips, freezing the surreal space. It is the mysterious Yin King. It must be her. This time we will die for sure. The elder was almost desperate. Judging from the powerful evil chi coming from the elder in yellow, he was definitely a former life and death realm warrior. That strange-looking weapon must be an extreme rank great weapon as well. Either one of them would be able to kill them instantly, not to mention having both at the same time. Die. 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 Different from the four evil beings before, the mysterious Yin King could only say simple words. But it was these simple words that made everyone face a huge disaster. After the first word was said, all 7 of them were blown backward, pressing against the wall. Their heads were spinning, and their hearts were beating 10 times faster than normal. All of their blood was flowing backward and their limbs were numb. After the second word was said, besides Yi Qin, Murong Qingqing, the lady in yellow, and De Er Xiong, the other 3 were bleeding out of all of their orifices. Their hearts were beating like a drum. Soul Sound Wave Attack. Yi Qin was shocked. Soul Sound Wave Attack was to let the soul spread out in the form of sound waves. It could not only hurt the soul but also cause a huge pressure on the body. If one of the 2 was weaker, then both of them would be killed. It did not matter if it was the death of the soul or the death of the body. Immortal, suppress. The first thing that came to Yi Chen's mind was not himself, but Murong Qingqing. Although her body was a perfect demi-demon body, her soul would not be that powerful. It was very possible that she would be killed by her soul. At this moment of life and death, inside Yi Chen's soul ocean, the immortal sword spirit that had not made a breakthrough for a long time finally condensed into a rank 4 immortal sword spirit. But right then Yi Chen did not know about the breakthrough at all. He only knew that he had to push his immortal sword spirit with all of his power and release the eternal immortal sword intent to protect Murong Qingqing. The third word of death had finally arrived. Boom, boom, boom. Jin Wanshuang the elder and the cold-looking teenagers' heads exploded, blood spraying out everywhere. This was the result of their soul shattering, and their Zhen Yuan going out of control, rushing around inside their bodies crazily. Although the lady in yellow was a top half-step king warrior, and her soul membrane was extremely powerful, it was still not enough to block out the mysterious Yin King's soul sound wave attack. She puked out a mouthful of blood, her face extremely pale. On the other hand, Murong Qingqing had Yi Chen's immortal sword intent to protect her, so her soul would not shatter. But this soul sound wave had still gone through the immortal sword intent and landed on Murong Qingqing's soul ocean, knocking her out. As for Yi Chen, he was also suffering bitterly. His soul power was 5 times that of normal people, but because he did not have a soul membrane, the soul sound wave directly rushed into his sea of soul, sweeping around crazily and creating huge waves. Sensing their master's danger, the destruction sword spirit and the immortal sword spirit both shone with a bright sword intent light, lighting up his soul ocean and clearing out the abnormal soul sound wave. Among the 7, only De Er Xiong did not have any problems, which was really strange. Am I going to die here? Yi Chen had finally made it through the soul sound wave. Looking at the mysterious evil king floating in the air, a bitter expression appeared on his face. The latter had only uttered the word, die, 3 times and they had almost been killed. If he had attacked with a single attack they would have been dead for sure. Boom. A sudden change occurred. The coffin lid that sealed the entrance was struck by a tremendous force and flew inward. Chapter 797. An elder in black robes, who was not tall but had an aura as deep as the ocean, walked in. The black-robed old man clearly did not expect to see a yellow-robed old man floating in the air on the 33rd floor after clearing the obstacles. The yellow-robed old man's clothes were in a weathered state. Dense yin chi wafted from his body, freezing the surrounding space. Evil Spirit King. No, he looks like an evil spirit but not. As the demi-demon king of the demi-demon race, the elder in black had seen a lot. He could tell that this elder in yellow was not just an evil spirit. He was a life form that was even more evil than an evil spirit. Once he was exposed in the normal world, he would be attacked by the god's thunder. However, inside this mysterious Yin Tower, the destiny was blocked and he could not sense his existence. Apart from the yellow-robed old man, the black-robed old man also sensed 3 other living beings. He turned his head to look and his eyes couldn't help but brighten up. Among the 3 lucky survivors, the energy fluctuation emitted by that beautiful woman was actually the devil power. Devil power could only be cultivated by those with the perfect demonic bloodline, and there were only a handful of people with the perfect demonic bloodline. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that this woman was the one with the perfect demonic bloodline that his clansmen were talking about. He didn't expect that when he was looking for the perfect demonic bloodline, she would come to him on her own accord. It was like wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without even looking for it. Demi-Demon King. Yi Chen and the girl in yellow squinted their eyes. Only the Demi-Demon King's Zhen Yuan would have demon qi that could not be hidden. In other words, the demon qi was already the element of their Zhen Yuan. For example, the fire element Zhen Yuan could be called demon fire element Zhen Yuan, which was much more powerful than normal fire element Zhen Yuan. This place was not good to stay for long. Yi Chen had a bad premonition. The opponent was most likely here for Murong. Right now, Murong was still in a coma, so he could only rely on himself. Carrying Murong with his left hand, Yi Chen stood up. He stared at the elder in black and moved his body. When he passed by Daer Xiong, he was knocked down to the ground by Yi Chen. It turned out that Daer Xiong's physical body was extremely powerful. Although the soul sound wave of the elder in yellow had shattered his soul, it did not cause any damage to his physical body. Although he looked normal on the outside, he was already dead. Where do you want to go? The black-clothed old man slowly stretched out his right hand and grinned. Leave this place. Yi Chen secretly gathered his vital energy, his eyes subconsciously glancing at the evil vanquishing sword in front of him. If my guess is correct, you've killed many of my demonic human clan's clansmen. Now you can't go anywhere. This will be your grave. As he spoke, the black-robed old man made a grabbing motion with his right hand. Just half a step, and Yi Chen would be able to step on the evil shattering sword. However, right then he and Murong were both bound by an invisible power. Their feet were floating in the air, unable to move at all. The power of a demonic human king's grab had already surpassed the limit of a half-step king warrior. Without experiencing it for themselves, it would be hard to imagine how powerful a life and death realm demonic human king would be. That kind of power had already reached the level where it could do whatever it wanted. Clatter. The black-robed old man's power was very ingenious, not harming Murong at all. However, it made Yi Chen feel as if he had been coiled by a huge python. His bones creaked as if they couldn't bear the burden. The Zhen Yuan he had just gathered was forcibly cut off from its source, and was completely blocked. On the right side, the yellow-robed lady held her breath as she watched this scene. She was inwardly regretting that Yi Chen couldn't see through her, but how could she see through Yi Chen? The fact proved that her intuition was right. Yi Chen was far more mysterious than she had imagined. Everyone had died, and only she and Yi Chen were safe and sound. Moreover, she was the strongest, half-step king warrior, while Yi Chen was only at the peak of late Sea of Soul realm. Unfortunately, such a genius was about to die, and she herself couldn't even protect herself. She could only hope that this demonic human king would be in a better mood. At the critical moment, the yellow-robed old man, Mysterious Yin King, saved Yi Chen's life. The mysterious Yin King sensed that the black-robed old man was not normal, so he held a strange weapon in his right hand and waved it down. That horrifying chi power seemed like it was going to cut open the surreal space inside the tower. If the black-robed old man did not let go of Yi Chen and use his full power, he might be wounded by that attack. Letting go of Yi Chen, the black-robed old man pushed out with both of his hands. Boom. The power from the mysterious Yin King was cold and evil, while the demonic Zhen Yuan from the black-robed old man was aggressive and dark. With the two powers clashing together, it was like the end of the world. Yi Chen did not even need to look to know that in the middle of the 33rd floor, there was a destructive tornado coming toward him. If he did not get away from the 33rd floor in time, he would most likely be killed. Run. Without thinking, Yi Chen stepped on the evil shattering sword and performed his defensive sword spell. The pseudo-extreme rank great sword turned into a beam of light, shooting out of the 33rd floor within a second. He did not even have the time to pick up his storage ring, because any delay would cost him his life. As he flew on his sword, a layer of white cuticle appeared on his body as well, which was indeed the dragon bone defense layer. Outside of the dragon bone defense layer was his protective Zhen Yuan, which was imprinted with bronze symbols. With the two layers of defense layered together, it was his most powerful defense. Yi Chen was fast, but the lady in yellow was not slow either. At this moment, she finally revealed her identity as a demonic beast. With a twist of her body, she transformed into a giant snake that seemed to be made of yellow crystal. The thickest part of this giant yellow crystal snake was as thick as a waist, and the thinnest part was its neck, which was only as thick as a calf. On its head, there was a small yellow horn that flickered with a pure, flawless yellow light. The yellow crystal snake that the lady in yellow had turned into was as fast as lightning as it shot out of the entrance of the 33rd floor, following closely behind Yi Qin. The destructive tornado was spreading too fast, and the whole 33rd floor was covered by it. The corpses of Jin Wanshuang and the rest had been turned into ashes within a second, and even their storage rings had been slowly eroded until nothing was left. In the next second, the destructive tornado had caught up with them through the entrance of the 33rd floor. It was like a hot knife through butter and nothing could stop it. When Yi Qin arrived at the 31st floor, he was finally caught up by the destructive tornado. The powerful power touched his body, and Yi Qin felt like he was in the middle of an endless ocean. On top of the ocean, there were endless waves, and he could not control the direction of his flying sword at all. I have to hold on. The protective Jin Yuan layer that had been activated along with the bronze armor started to wobble, and its color started to dim down. The bronze symbols made a couple of popping sounds before disappearing. Yi Qin held onto Murong Qingqing tightly, protecting her in front of him. Even if the destructive tornado broke through his protective Jin Yuan layer, it would not hurt her immediately. Stumbling, Yi Qin rushed to the 30th floor with Murong Qingqing in his arms. The destructive tornado had finally weakened a lot, but what made his expression change was that another huge explosion was heard from the 33rd floor. A powerful vibration was transmitted down through the tower. Not good. Yi Qin looked extremely serious. The first wave of the destructive tornado had not disappeared yet, and if the second wave caught up, it would be impossible for him to survive. While flying on his sword, a lot of thoughts flashed through Yi Qin's mind. Too weak. I'm still too weak. One life and death realm warriors battle, and the resulting tornado was already enough to kill me, and that was only because I had escaped fast enough. If I had been slower, I would have been dead already. Is this the power of life and death realm warriors? Even a tiny bit of it could kill any warrior below life and death realm. If I did not have the bronze armor and the defensive sword spell, would I still be alive? For the first time, Yi Qin truly felt the gap between him and life and death realm warriors. That kind of gap was like a chasm that could not be crossed. His protective Jin Yuan continued to weaken, and the aftermath of the first wave of destruction storm could no longer hurt him. However, an even greater danger had arrived. The second wave of destruction storm had caught up with him. Although it had weakened a lot as time passed, once it overlapped with the aftermath of the first wave, its power would not be far off, even if it was not as strong as the previous one. You owe me a favor. A yellow light flashed once behind him, and a massive yellow crystal snake wrapped around Yi Qin. At the same time, an even more horrifying destructive tornado appeared, drowning the three of them. Yi Qin realized that the yellow light around the snake had the special effect of weakening the destructive tornado. It was like a water snake swimming against the current. Although the water was a hindrance, it was much smaller as she swam. Her speed was even faster than Yi Qin's flying sword. Yi Qin could feel that the woman in yellow had a special attack. The snake spoke in human language. This is my special power. I see. Thank you. I do owe you a favor. Favors were the hardest to repay, but it was also not easy to do so. Let's get out of this first. The destructive tornado was too powerful. The third, fourth, and fifth waves had already appeared. It was hard to imagine what kind of battle the two on the 33rd floor were having. Right now, they were still on the 24th floor and there were still a lot of floors below. The destructive tornado would be able to attack all the way to the first floor of the tower. Only after getting out of the tower would they be truly safe. As soon as they arrived at the 23rd floor, Yi Qin and the woman heard a few screams. Looking over, Shi Xiaobao's group had been torn apart by the destructive tornado. Only Shi Xiaobao and the strange old man survived. The others were all dead. 22nd floor. 21st floor. 20th floor. 19th floor. The third wave of the destructive storm stacked on top of each other, keeping the destructive storm at its original power. Then came the fourth wave, the fifth wave, and the destructive storm continued to increase. Inside the mysterious tower, there seemed to be an infinite amount of light, lighting up the entire tower. The first floor. After half a cup of tea's time, 4 figures flew out, all with pale faces and bleeding from all 7 orifices. Shi Xiaobao had already returned to his golden lion form. The golden fur on his body was completely bald. After a miserable roar, he flew out. The strange old man mumbled and also left. The yellow crystal snake turned into the woman in yellow. She smiled and said, "See you later." Then she spat out a mouthful of blood and left. So close. The dragon bone defense layer on Yi Chen's body disappeared as he carried Murong Qingqing and left. After an unknown period of time, another human figure flew out. It was indeed the old man in black. Right now he looked even worse than Yi Chen and the rest. His chi was a lot weaker and there was a cut on his shoulder. Although the muscles inside were not damaged at all, Life and Death Realm warriors had an undying body, so it might have been cut off already. The dead mysterious Yin King is even more powerful. Damn it. The old man in black tore open the space and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 798. After the old man left, the mysterious Yin King wanted to rush out of the mysterious Yin Tower and escape. However, as soon as he stepped out, a black hole suddenly appeared in the sky above the ocean. Inside the black hole, a golden lightning pierced through the sky and landed on the mysterious Yin King's foot as if it had teleported. The mysterious evil king's entire foot was burned into ashes by the golden flame, and the fire spread towards his body. However, when it entered the mysterious Yin Tower, the golden flame died out automatically, and the mysterious evil king also gave up on leaving the mysterious Yin Tower. Above the ocean, the elder's figure appeared. He raised his head and saw the black hole slowly disappear. The expression on his face changed many times. Although the mysterious Yin Tower restricted the mysterious evil king's freedom, it also increased his battling ability. Damn, I can't believe that in one battle, I lost hundreds of years of cultivation. This hundreds of years of cultivation, I will need at least a few months to recover. The elder's expression was not good. Losing a lot of cultivation, although it wouldn't decrease his battling ability, it would affect his stamina. Most importantly, if he didn't recover the lost cultivation immediately, the longer it took, the harder it would be for him to recover. They shouldn't have gone far. Should I go after them? A look of hesitation flashed across the elder's face. Oh. Suddenly the elder spat out a mouthful of cold blood. The blood was gray, and once it touched the air, it made a sizzling sound. Damn, I will clear out the yin qi in my body first. Feeling that there was too much yin qi in his body, it would be a hindrance to recovering his cultivation, so the elder gave up on the idea of searching for Murong Qingqing. To him, as long as he recovered, finding a person would be a piece of cake. There was no need to make things too difficult for himself. The figure disappeared like a black bubble, and the elder disappeared without a trace. Yi Chen took Murong Qingqing with him, but didn't leave the ruins immediately. Instead, he found a very hidden building and temporarily moved in. If he went back the way he came, he would undoubtedly encounter the self-exploding fireflies. Yi Chen was not confident that he could leave this place safely with the unconscious Murong. It was better to wait for Murong to regain consciousness first. However, Yi Chen was also a little anxious. It was hard to say how long it would take for Murong Rong to recover from the soul shock. It was possible that Murong Rong could recover now, but it was also possible that she would not wake up for a long time. This depended on her luck, and it also depended on whether Murong Rong's soul was condensed or not. Spreading a blanket on the floor, Yi Chen carefully placed Murong on it. Looking at her pale and delicate face, Yi Chen sighed softly and sat cross-legged to the side. He began to regulate his breathing and heal his injuries. If it was anyone else, they would have suffered serious internal injuries from the Tiamat's wrath and would not be able to recover within 3 to 5 days. Fortunately, Yi Chen had the most basic immortal body. As long as the injuries did not affect his core, he would be able to recover in a short period of time. Half an hour later, Yi Chen slowly let out a breath of turbid qi and opened his eyes. I didn't expect this to be a blessing in disguise. The mysterious Yin King's soul sound wave greatly increased the burden on my heart, but it also stimulated the effect of the heart-nurturing grass. Originally, I would need more than a month to refine the heart-nurturing grass into my heart. But now I only need a week. I'll take this opportunity and try to break through to half-step king realm. Even if I can't break through, I'll at least familiarize myself with it. Keeping his promise, Yi Chen began his second attempt at half-step king warrior realm. On the 5th day, on this day Murong Qingqing groaned and woke up from her coma. I'm not dead. Murong Qingqing thought that she was dead for sure. Now that she had woken up, it proved that she was only unconscious. At that time her soul was in a mess and she thought that she was dead for sure. Turning her head, Murong Qingqing saw Yi Chen sitting cross-legged on the ground. Steam was rising from his body, and he seemed to be beside a stove. Knowing that Yi Chen was trying to break through to half-step king realm, Murong Qingqing didn't disturb him. She crawled up from the bed and sat cross-legged on the ground. Taking a deep breath, she slowly entered a meditative state. On the 8th day, Yi Chen woke up. It's still not enough. Seems like I'll have to refine all 3 heart-nurturing grass before I can enter half-step king realm. However, I finally refined the first one. Beside him, Murong Qingqing sensed Yi Chen's movements and opened her eyes. Still not successful? Yi Chen said joyfully, "You're awake." "Yeah, it feels like a dream." Murong Qingqing leaned over. Being alive was a gift from the heavens. She couldn't bear to die. "It's good that you're awake. As for breaking through to half-step king realm, there's no rush. I'll succeed sooner or later." When Murong Qingqing hadn't woken up, Yi Chen had always felt that he couldn't enter the right state. There were too many worries. The soul was a person's foundation and it was very troublesome. Hugging Murong, Yi Chen stood up and said, "Since you're awake, let's leave this place first. This is not a good place." "How is mysterious Yin King?" Murong Qingqing suddenly asked. She didn't know how Yi Chen had brought her out safely. Yi Chen smiled and said, "It's all thanks to your demonic human king. He fought with mysterious Yin King, and I took the opportunity to leave the 33rd floor. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for us to leave alive." As for mysterious Yin King and demonic human king, I think they're still alive. At their level, killing each other is very difficult. It's the chaotic demonic ocean's demonic human king. Murong Qingqing said in astonishment. "It should be. I'll try my best to enter half-step king realm. Otherwise, if I run into them, I won't even have the strength to fight back." Although entering half-step king realm meant that Yi Chen couldn't be an opponent of life and death kings, he had a large amount of Zhenyuan crystals, which could allow him to increase his cultivation base to a certain extent. Once his cultivation base was enough, adding on his own tricks, it would be better than having no hope at all. Murong Qingqing woke up, and the two left the ruins with much more ease. Those self-exploding fireflies still couldn't do anything to her dark force field. After leaving the ruins, the two dived for a long time. Only when they were tens of thousands of li away from this place did they break out of the water. Breathing in the fresh air, the two felt as if they had seen the sun again. "Let's find an uninhabited island first." Yi Chen looked around and said to Murong Qingqing, "I feel that my cultivation base can increase again." Murong Qingqing nodded. Finding an island in the boundless ocean was too easy. In less than half a day, the two found a relatively safe island. After the effect of the heart-nourishing grass had been used up, Yi Chen swallowed the second one. While refining it, he comprehended the space profound while studying the bewitching mirror shattering. The two complemented each other, and studying them together brought about unimaginable benefits. As Yi Chen's first space profound sword art, bewitching mirror shattering opened a new door for Yi Chen. As he studied it more and more, Yi Chen felt that the space profound was more and more profound. Wherever one was, there was a space. Space was not a box but a container that could hold everything. Even time itself had an inseparable connection with this container. As the intensity of the bewitching mirror shattering increased, Yi Chen faintly felt that the things he saw were different from before. Before, he was limited to the surface. But now, he could already look at the essence of things. Perhaps it was a little hard to adapt to looking at the essence of things at the beginning, but once he got used to it, it would have an unimaginable effect on his future path. Break. As the sword slashed out, the seawater on the east side of the island twisted and folded, splitting into countless layers. Each layer was like a glass container. The seawater within the range of the space power was completely shattered, and waves soared into the sky. It should be about 80 to 90% done. Sheathing the evil vanquishing sword, Yi Chen let the waves wash over his body. Unknowingly, a month had passed. The second heart-nourishing grass had been refined successfully. Compared to before, Yi Chen's heart strength was several times stronger. With his blood pumping faster, his heart was like a drum, letting out thumping sounds. This sound caused the surrounding earth to shake and dust to rise. Once Yi Chen had dived into the sea. The sound of his heart beating had even killed a fourth-grade demonic beast. Ripples spread out in all directions with Yi Chen as the center. It was hard to imagine the extent of Yi Chen's heartbeat. However, this was not the end. Yi Chen had officially refined the third heart-nourishing grass. Once he succeeded, he would attempt to break through to half-step king realm. This time he could only succeed. Failure was not allowed. On the other side, a powerful demonic aura soared into the sky, dyeing the sky black. Black whirlwinds appeared out of nowhere and revolved around the island, fiercely blowing. Murong Qingqing's cultivation base had clearly increased by another level. She was getting closer and closer to a veteran half-step king. Apart from this, the soul membrane of half-step kings would also increase along with the increase in cultivation base. For example, the yellow-robed woman was a strongest half-step king. Even if she suffered the soul sound waves of mysterious Yin King, she would only suffer some injuries and not lose consciousness. This was the effect of the soul membrane. On the other hand, Yi Chen possessed a fifth-step destruction sword soul and fourth-step immortal sword soul, as well as a soul power 5 times that of ordinary people. Even if he wasn't a half-step king, he could completely resist mysterious Yin King's soul sound waves. Compared to the yellow-robed woman, once he entered half-step king realm and formed his soul membrane, it would be difficult for even life and death kings to attack him with soul power. Unless it was some extremely frightening heaven-grade high-step soul attack secret art, or a heaven-grade peak soul attack secret art of annihilation. Another month passed by. Suddenly, a huge wave rose up in the sea. The huge wave took the shape of a ring and suddenly spread out. This was not the end. In the center of the ring-shaped wave, a huge water ball was suddenly born. It expanded to a size of several dozen meters before exploding violently. Water vapor filled the air. Dong 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 dong. The intense vibrations could be heard even on the island, startling some seabirds and causing them to flutter their wings and flee in panic. 3 heart-nourishing grass actually strengthened my heart to this extent. It seems like the success rate of breaking through to half-step king realm is at least 70%. Yi Chen emerged from the sea and stood on a reef. What Yi Chen didn't know was that the main reason his heart could be strengthened to this extent was related to his undying body. The human body had a limit and too much medicinal energy would be wasted, and the body wouldn't be able to endure it all at once. If it were someone else, refining 3 heart-nourishing grass might not be as effective as refining 1 heart-nourishing grass for Yi Chen. This was because Yi Chen's undying body could maximize the potential of his body, allowing him to absorb medicinal energy like a bottomless pit. Moreover, if there was any injury, the undying body would also help repair it. As long as his heart didn't explode, there wouldn't be any problem. Therefore, although the undying body seemed insignificant in many aspects, nobody knew the truth. At the very least, Yi Chen wasn't clear about it. Chapter 799. Murong Qingqing had already come out of seclusion. Her current demonic power cultivation base was much stronger than when she was in the ruins. With a slight circulation of demonic power, the sky around the island darkened and demonic wind whistled, as if they had entered a world of darkness. According to Yi Chen's estimation, Murong Qingqing's current cultivation base was almost at mid-half-step king realm, while the yellow-robed woman was clearly at high step. This was the difference between having demonic power crystals and not. With Murong Qingqing here, Yi Chen could relax and enter seclusion to break through. Inside the spacious cave, Yi Chen sat cross-legged on a stone platform with his 5 hearts facing upwards, rapidly entering a state of wholehearted cultivation. Go. Under the control of his consciousness, the Zhenyuan in Yi Chen's dantian slowly and powerfully revolved. Strands of Zhenyuan gushed out of his dantian and flowed into his blood vessels. Then, driven by his blood, he began to break through to half-step king realm. There were countless blood vessels in the human body. Apart from the cornea, hair, nails, teeth, and epithelium, blood vessels could be found all over the body. According to the different structures and functions of blood vessels, they were divided into arteries, veins, and capillaries. Breaking through to half-step king realm naturally didn't need to fuse all 3 types of blood vessels with Zhenyuan. He only needed to make the Zhenyuan perfectly circulate along with the blood in the arteries. As his blood began to flow faster, Yi Chen's heartbeat became higher and higher. Every beat was like a coconut, yet also like a tightly clenched fist, extremely powerful. Thumping sounds rang out incessantly, and the air in the cave also vibrated, spreading outwards. Good. This is several times smoother than the first time. Feeling the power of his heart, Yi Chen was even more confident. Under the control of his consciousness, his blood flow once again increased, reaching an unimaginable level. However, just in case, Yi Chen still swallowed a spirit-melting grass, which could allow Zhenyuan and blood to merge for a longer time. With enough spirit-melting grass, he wouldn't even need heart-protecting flower or heart-nurturing grass to directly break through to half-step king realm. Unfortunately, spirit-melting grass wasn't cabbage. Yi Chen had only found 2 of them in Four Corner City. Everything was ready. Yi Chen could feel that his breakthrough to half-step king realm was not far off. While Yi Chen was trying to break through to the half-king realm, the outside world was not calm either. It was unknown when a head the size of a castle had emerged from the raging sea. It was a giant whale. On the giant whale's head, there were 4 lake-sized eyes. 2 of the eyes were blue and flashed with electricity. The two eyes in the middle were scarlet, cruel and bloodthirsty. It was a four-eyed thunder whale at the half-step demonic king realm. It was the largest among the cetacean sea beasts. It was said that the largest four-eyed thunder whale was comparable to a city. It could swallow half a city in one bite, killing countless lives. Its huge body meant that the beast power inside its body was boundless. The moment the four-eyed thunder whale appeared, everything within hundreds of miles became strangely still. The waves froze in the air, the wind stopped spinning, and everything was frozen. Puny human, hand over all your wealth. The four-eyed thunder whale let out a thunderous sound towards Murong Chingching. Murong Chingching stood on a tall rock. She reached out her hand and brushed away the hair that had been messed up by the wind before. She said lightly, "Cut the crap. You are perfect for the experiment." With her cultivation increasing, Murong Chingching was just about to find someone to test it out on. The four-eyed thunder whale was a huge sea beast, so it would be a good opponent. "You are looking for death." The four-eyed thunder whale was furious. It opened its huge mouth and a thick water column with electricity shot out, attacking at Murong Chingching, who was relatively small in size. Murong Chingching did not dare to be careless, so she reached out her right hand and blocked in front of her body. Rumble. A semicircle black barrier appeared, protecting half of the island within. The 100-meter-thick water column crashed onto it, bringing up a huge splash. However, those arm-thick electric currents were unable to penetrate the barrier and harm Murong Chingching. Dark element, profound sense, martial art, darkness, sky. Die. The most powerful attack of sea beasts was not energy attacks but physical attacks. The mountain-like four-eyed thunder whale jumped up. The sky was dark and the whole island was covered in its shadow. Swoosh, swoosh. The four-eyed thunder whale's body was surrounded by electricity as it smashed towards Murong Chingching. Dark devour. Murong Chingching was afraid that the battle would affect Yi Qin, who was in the middle of breaking through. She quickly formed a hand seal with both of her hands. After that, she waved her right hand in the air. All of a sudden, 4 black light balls formed in a row, spinning and collapsing like 4 small black holes. As soon as the four-eyed thunder whale touched the black light balls, it immediately felt that half of the impact had disappeared. The beast power in its body flowed out like water, pouring into the black light balls. This black light ball could devour power and energy. Piss off. Her tall and slim body jumped into the air as Murong Chingching threw out a palm attack at the four-eyed thunder whale's forehead. That powerful demon power exploded, blowing the four-eyed thunder whale dozens of miles away. The shockwave that was brought up even tore apart the clouds in the sky. Such a rich beast power. The second her palm made contact with the four-eyed thunder whale, Murong Chingching could feel that its beast power had not decreased by much. Ever since she had become a half-step king warrior, her dark devour ability had increased by more than 10 times. Even a half-step king warrior would lose 1/10 of their power if they were hit by it. If they were hit consecutively, they would not even need to fight before their Zhenyuan would be completely devoured. However, the four-eyed thunder whale's beast power could be said to be endless. 4 dark devour attacks would only devour 1/100th of its beast power, which was almost negligible. Whale dance. As a half-step beast king, the four-eyed thunder whale would not only have this kind of attack. Its body shone with a bright thunder light, and hundreds of giant whales were formed from the ocean water. These whales were not even 1/100th the size of the four-eyed thunder whale, but there were a lot of them. Their bodies were covered in thunder and lightning, making cracking sounds. Hundreds of huge whales rode the wind and broke through the waves, rushing toward Murong Chingching and attacking her. Murong Chingching's expression did not change at all. The purple and black electric currents on her body moved quickly, and an invisible power field spread out with her as the center. Within a second, hundreds of giant whales were affected. Under the effect of the power field, every step the whales took would have to bear 10 times the pressure. Before they even got close to the island, they had all been shattered and turned back into ocean water. What kind of power field is this? The 2 eyes in the center of the four-eyed thunder whale squinted into slits. A normal force field wouldn't be this powerful. His whale dance was one of his most powerful trump cards, but he couldn't even get close to her. This woman's power was beyond his imagination. I will come again. The four-eyed thunder whale sank back into the ocean, and its towering mountain-like body disappeared. Lightly landing on a rock nearby, Murong Chingching frowned slightly. Ocean beasts are usually huge and their beast power is extremely powerful. It is not easy to kill them unless I can break through their defense with one attack and hit their vitals. That palm attack from before had already wounded the four-eyed thunder whale. But obviously, compared to its huge body, that injury was just a small one. It did not even have the right to cause the four-eyed thunder whale any pain. Ocean beasts were called moving fortresses for a reason. Guarding the island, Murong Qingqing did not move, but her soul power would scan out from time to time. Inside the cave on the island, Yi Qin had already reached the critical moment. His blood was driving his Zhenyuan, completing the perfect cycle. He was only one step away and it would be the most difficult one. Taking out the second and last spirit melting plant, Yi Qin swallowed it without any hesitation. All of a sudden, a wave of cool and sticky medicinal power seeped into his blood vessels, making the blood and Zhenyuan combine even better. There would not be any sign of separation in a short period of time. Success or failure depends on this. Yi Qin moved his mind and his blood flow increased rapidly. His heart was reaching its limit, and a thumping sound could be heard continuously. Soon. Yi Qin's body was surrounded by a hot mist, and within the mist, there was a vague red light. It was the sign of the excessive water evaporation, bringing out the qi and blood. In his inner vision state, Yi Qin could see that inside his arteries, his blood and Zhenyuan had almost formed a perfect cycle. There was only a small gap left, which would decide whether or not he would be able to reach the half-step king warrior level. Let's make a breakthrough. Taking a deep breath, Yi Qin pushed his blood flow to an overloaded state. All of a sudden, his heart was slightly damaged and a lot of his blood vessels were broken. Boom. Right then, a wave of powerful Zhenyuan vibration spread out in all directions with the cave as the center. Dark clouds gathered in the sky all of a sudden, and heavy rain poured down. Lightning and thunder roared, and the intense yuan qi vibrated, causing a huge storm. It was nature's reaction to the change of the environment. All of a sudden, a massive sword qi shot out into the sky, tearing apart the sky and earth. The breakthrough is successful. The sword qi? Murong Qingqing turned her head, a joyful expression on her face. Without a doubt, from this moment on, Yi Qin had officially entered the half-step king warrior level. However, this horrifying sword qi was a bit different, completely different from the sword qi that came from great swords. It had a unique characteristic. Murong Qingqing looked like she was thinking about something. Before this, Yi Qin had trained the Green Lotus Sword spell, which was a top-rank Earth Realm martial art. Above that, there was actually a Heaven Realm martial art, which was not something that anyone could train successfully. Although it was related to the comprehensive ability, it was not directly related. Instead, it was directly related to Zhenyuan and Realm. Normally, only Life and Death Realm warriors could create a Heaven Realm martial art that was suitable for them. Of course, it would take a long time, at least dozens of years, and at most hundreds of years. Under Life and Death Realm, even if one's comprehensive ability was extremely high, they would not be able to create a Heaven Realm martial art, because under Life and Death Realm, one's Zhenyuan would not be able to support the operation of a Heaven Realm martial art. However, there was an exception, and that was some top-rank Earth Realm martial arts that could be upgraded. For example, the Green Lotus Sword spell was one of them, which was originally a top-rank Earth Realm martial art. Once it was upgraded, it would naturally become a Heaven Realm martial art. With such a huge commotion, Murong Qingqing could not think of any other possibilities. Chapter 800. Murong Qingqing's guess was right. When Yi Qin broke through to the half-step King Warrior level, he had indeed increased his Green Lotus Sword spell to the Heaven Realm. Actually, a long time ago, Yi Qin had already felt that his Green Lotus Sword spell had been restricted, as if there was an invisible barrier stopping him from making a breakthrough. Since Battle King's experience was different from Yi Qin's, he had created his own Heaven Realm martial art when he reached the Life and Death Realm. Therefore, his experience could not explain this, and Yi Qin did not think too much about it at that time. Now that he thought about it, it should be because of the special nature of his Green Lotus Sword spell. After all, when he first got his Green Lotus Sword spell, it was written that both the Green Lotus Sword spell and Green Lotus Sword arts could make breakthroughs. Later on, the Green Lotus Sword art had evolved into a Heaven Realm martial art, which was also a profound sense martial art, Amaranth in nature. Heaven Realm martial arts are profound sense martial arts. Although Heaven Realm martial arts do not have much to do with profound sense, they still contain an immeasurable power like the natural law. Battle King's Heaven Realm martial art was the Platinum Sword body, which had a natural advantage in defense. Normal King warriors would not be able to hurt him at all. I wonder what kind of special effect my Green Lotus Sword spell has. Yi Qin's body was shining with a powerful blue qi flow. It was extremely sharp, and with just a little bit of combination, it could form an indestructible sword chi. That earth-shattering sword chi just now was a beam of sword chi formed by the blue chi flow. Scatter. Yi Chen groaned as he controlled the blue chi flow to scatter. Pop. As if a blue bubble had been formed, the blue chi flow spread out with Yi Chen as the center. Looking from afar, Yi Chen seemed to be inside a massive blue chi cover. Inside the chi cover, the blue chi flow was spinning without any pattern. Condense. Yi Chen could not be more familiar with the Green Lotus Sword spell. Therefore, even though his Green Lotus Sword spell had reached the heaven realm, Yi Chen still vaguely knew something about it. Ding, ding. Countless sword sounds were heard as countless blue great swords appeared inside the blue chi cover. Is this the sword artist's domain? Sword domain. Yi Chen was surprised. No, it should be the embryonic form of a sword domain. A true sword domain would have its own unique laws, and these laws would be controlled by the person who released it. Big brother, that woman is on the island ahead. Thousands of miles away, 4 figures were galloping over. These 4 figures were a 4-eyed giant whale, a double-headed serpent, a flaming giant bird, and a hook-nosed man standing on the back of the giant bird. The man's bare arms were covered with fish scales, and he had a pair of gray wings on his back. The demonic energy fluctuations emanating from him seemed to contain the attributes of wind and water. The man nodded satisfyingly and said to the huge whale, "It's hard to see a human half-step king in the deep ocean, not to mention a beautiful woman. You've done well. Once I capture that woman, I'll give you a bit more of her wealth." "Thank you, big brother." The 4-eyed whale opened its pitch-black mouth. Sea beasts in the deep sea had always lacked spirit stones to cultivate, so human experts were one of their favorite prey. "We're here." Thousands of miles were only tens of blinks of an eye for sea beasts at half-step beast king level. Soon the 4 beasts arrived at the island. "You're here again." Murong Qingqing had already sensed their arrival. The 4-eyed whale laughed weirdly. "I said I would come back. I didn't expect you to be this arrogant, staying here and not leaving. With your power, why do you need to leave?" Purple-black electric currents moved around on the surface of her body. As Murong Qingqing spoke, her dark power field spread out, covering dozens of miles. "Big brother, this woman is too arrogant. Let me teach her a lesson." The 2-headed serpent volunteered. The hook-nosed man glanced at Murong Qingqing. In his memory, he had never seen a human woman who was even 60% as beautiful as her. All of a sudden, a perverted look flashed through his eyes as he held his chin and said to the serpent, "Don't hurt her. I know what I'm doing." The serpent was not much smaller than the 4-eyed whale, and in terms of length, it was even longer. It coiled its body and raised its 2 heads up high, looking down at Murong Qingqing. Its long red tongues flicked in and out like 2 10-meter-long spears. "Surrender now and you will not have to suffer any pain. My patience is limited." The 2-headed serpent was more powerful than the 4-eyed whale. It had learned from the 4-eyed whale that this woman wasn't necessarily stronger than the 4-eyed whale, but her force field ability was slightly more powerful, which rendered its trump card useless. The 2-headed serpent wasn't afraid of any force fields. Its ability was different from the 4-eyed whale's. Go. Murong Qingqing didn't waste any more time with the serpent. She leaped into the air and threw dozens of hand blades at the serpent. Clang, 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 clang. Although the Flying Sky Assassination Cut was only a low-rank profound sense martial art, it was fast. Because of its carelessness, the serpent was hit by dozens of black blade lights, its scales flying everywhere. Feeling the pain, the serpent screamed. Its left head shot out a high-pressure water column toward Murong Qingqing, while its right head shot out a black venom toward Murong Qingqing. The high-pressure water column only relied on the impact to hurt people, but the black venom was different. Once a demonic beast reached rank 9 or 10, its venom would no longer be pure venom, but a powerful venom mixed with genuine. Not to mention the venom from a half-step beast king, once it touched the body, it would be very troublesome. Swoosh. The wings on her back spread out as Murong Qingqing flashed once, avoiding the high-pressure water column and the black venom, appearing in the sky. Soul-extinguishing wave. Holding a black light ball in her hand, Murong Qingqing suddenly clenched her fist. Boom. The black light ball was shattered, and an energy wave mixed with a soul attack shot out toward the serpent. The serpent made a weird sound as its body flipped over, rolling around in the ocean. Although the soul attack contained in the soul-extinguishing wave was not enough to kill it, it had shaken its soul quite a bit. Moreover, the soul of the sea beasts had always been weaker than that of humans. This was the horrifying thing about soul attacks. Sky Demon Finger. Murong Qingqing seized the opportunity and performed another demon's martial art, Sky Demon Finger. The black finger power was like a small black sun, attacking toward the serpent. Boom. The black and red light spread out in all directions. In that critical moment, the flaming bird shot out a red fireball, which landed on the black sun. On the back of the flaming bird, the man clapped his hands and laughed. Not bad. Not bad. Number 4 and number 2's beast power are thousands of times more powerful than yours, but they still lost to you. Your power might even be at the top of the human demi-king warriors. The sea beasts were one of the beasts. Because of their huge bodies, their beast power was unstoppable. Normally, 10 human demi-king warriors would need to fight against one demi-king level sea beast. But it was also because of their power that it was extremely hard for the sea beasts to produce demi-king warriors. The deep ocean was so huge, and the demi-king level sea beasts might not be that much more than the humans. Cut the bullshit. Let's go. Murong Qingqing frowned slightly. The sea beasts were indeed scarier than the beasts on the land. The main reason was that they were too huge and their beast power was horrifying. Although their power and body might not be the same, the difference was still hundreds of times. Murong, let me do it. The cave on the island exploded, and Yi Qin and Blue flew over, standing right next to Murong Qingqing, looking at the 4 beasts in the distance. You are the one she is protecting, right? You have just reached demi-king warrior level. What can you do? The man observed Yi Qin carefully and realized that his Zhenyuan vibration was a lot weaker than Murong Qingqing's, which meant that he had just reached demi-king warrior level. Sword domain. Yi Qin did not say anything. He squinted his eyes slightly, and a blue light suddenly spread out from his body, covering hundreds of miles in a second. What is this? The man was already in the range of the blue light. He reached out his hand and made a grabbing gesture in the air, feeling that the blue chi flow was a bit piercing. Yi Qin smiled lightly and pushed his right hand toward the 4. Without any sign, the blue chi flow condensed into countless blue great swords, each of which contained a rank 5 destruction sword intent. Perhaps their pure attacking power was not as powerful as Yi Qin's normal attacks, but with enough of them, it would still have a destructive power. Tens of thousands of blue greatswords shot out, and the 4 beasts were all within the attack range. Be careful. The man did not dare to be careless, so he pushed up a layer of protective beast power. The other 3 beasts also activated their beast power to block out the incoming attacks. There were just too many blue greatswords shooting out like a storm. This kind of effect was just like thousands of Sea of Souls realm warriors attacking at the same time. Without a doubt, they had suppressed the 4 beasts, and then started to weaken their defense. Too scary. Back out. The aquiline-nosed man was aghast. His protective demonic energy couldn't block so many green swords. How was this a one-on-one fight? It was clearly a group fight. Tens of thousands of people ganging up on 4 people. They weren't sea beast kings, so they couldn't ignore this kind of attack. The first one to be attacked was the 4-eyed giant whale. Its body was the widest, so it was attacked the most. Almost a third of the attacks were directed at it. Like a piece of rotten meat, the 4-eyed giant whale was pierced by the blue great swords and turned into a pile of blood paste. The ocean water it was in had been cut into countless pieces, and it could not be healed right away. The next one to die was the double-headed snake, which was not much better than the whale. The flaming bird was rather fast. It carried the man and ran out of the sword realm. The red feathers on its body had almost all been cut off by the blue great swords. Luckily, it was at the edge of the sword realm and was able to run fast, so it was not killed right away. Do you think you can get away? Yi Qin took out his evil shattering sword and threw out a waning moon attack. That black crescent-shaped sword power made the full moon in the sky look even dimmer. It sliced through the flaming bird's body once. Swoosh. The flaming bird and the man were both dismembered within a second. Chapter 801. Murong Qingqing wasn't too surprised that Yi Qin had instantly killed the 2. Before entering Half-Step King realm, Yi Qin already had the strength of a strongest Half-Step King. Now that his cultivation base had increased by several folds, his strength had naturally reached an unfathomable level. However, Yi Qin's sword domain had broadened her horizons. She could tell that any of the blue swords within the sword domain didn't have much offensive power, only at late Sea of Soul realm. After all, the blue swords were merely sword chi, and didn't have the amplification of artifacts or profound martial skills. They only had pure killing power. However, when tens of thousands of blue swords shot out at the same time, Their momentum wasn't inferior to the combined attack of thousands of late Sea of Soul Realm experts. Is this the change brought about by the Green Lotus Sword Arts? Murong Qingqing asked. Yi Qin nodded. After the Green Lotus Sword Arts became a heaven-grade cultivation technique, it has many more wondrous uses. So far, I've only discovered the sword domain. Of course, a heaven-grade cultivation technique is a heaven-grade cultivation technique after all. Its Zhenyuan recovery speed is 10 times faster than before, and the circulation speed of Zhenyuan is also extremely fast. Cultivation techniques normally wouldn't increase one's battle power by too much, but they were extremely important. Thinking about it, one couldn't always rely on pills in a prolonged battle. If one took too many pills, their Zhenyuan would become impure, and they wouldn't be able to circulate it. Therefore, one's Zhenyuan recovery speed had to be impressive. At this moment, the advantage of a high-grade cultivation technique would be obvious. Secondly, during a battle, both sides would become stiff, and those with high-grade cultivation techniques could rapidly circulate Zhenyuan to expel the stiffness. This was an advantage that couldn't be ignored. Lastly, the higher the grade of the cultivation technique, the faster the cultivation would be. Without any exaggeration, an ordinary half-step king who cultivated bitterly for 100 years might not be able to reach the result of Yi Chen's 10 years of bitter cultivation. The gap between a heaven-grade cultivation technique and a peak earth-grade cultivation technique couldn't be calculated with common sense. Moreover, heaven-grade cultivation techniques usually had special powers. For example, Yi Chen's sword domain. If used well, it could allow Yi Chen to ignore group attacks. If he encountered hundreds or thousands of late Sea of Soul Realm experts, he would no longer need to run, as he could annihilate them all by himself. In the past, he could only retreat. Sword domain, no wonder. Murong Qingqing suddenly understood. Domain was an extremely special existence. Even among life and death kings, only a few possessed a domain. Although Yi Chen's sword domain was not a true domain, and hadn't formed the power of rules, it was a great trump card in the same realm. Yi Chen had just stepped into the half-step king-warrior realm, but he still did not have the time to use Zhenyuan crystals to increase his cultivation. After taking care of the 4 beasts, Yi Chen planned to spend some more time to increase his cultivation to the limit that he could control. Otherwise, all these Zhenyuan crystals would be a waste. When he was at late Sea of Soul Realm, Yi Chen had spent less than 10 Zhenyuan crystals to raise his cultivation base to peak late Sea of Soul Realm. However, after reaching half-step king realm, this amount increased by 100-fold. It was not that the Zhenyuan of half-step kings was several hundred times thicker than that of late Sea of Soul Realm, which would be too exaggerated. The main reason was that the Zhenyuan of half-step kings was even purer, to the point that it had reached a demanding level of purity. It was like gold. Even if the purity of gold was not high, it would still be valuable and no one would be willing to throw it away. However, at half-step king realm, it was like picking bones in an egg. Even the slightest flaw would be discarded. However, at this moment, no one would complain about their Zhenyuan being too pure. In fact, the purer the Zhenyuan, the better, because it would increase their chances of breaking through to life and death realm. After consuming 800 Zhenyuan crystals, Yi Chen's cultivation base had finally reached the limit of what he could control. Any more and he wouldn't be able to control it, and the gains would not make up for the losses. At this moment, Yi Chen's cultivation base had actually caught up to Murong Qingqing's. The gap between the two soul power and martial arts was too huge and it couldn't be helped. At peak late Sea of Soul Realm, I couldn't use the evil vanquishing sword's might at all, not to mention the Sky Scorpio sword. The evil vanquishing sword is a pseudo-extreme grade artifact, and it requires too much Zhenyuan. Right now, if I use it with all my strength, I should be able to use it 5 times. In the mysterious Yin Pagoda, Yi Chen wielded the evil vanquishing sword, which was only a bit more powerful than the Thunder Disaster sword. Of course, at that time, the evil vanquishing sword's power was more important than its might. The reason why Yi Chen was able to kill the aquiline-nosed man and the giant flame bird from 100 li away was precisely because he had unleashed the full might of the evil vanquishing sword. Otherwise, at such a distance, its might would have been weakened by a lot. After all, this was different from sword domain in which attacks would not be weakened. Raising his cultivation base to the limit of his control, it was time to leave. Instead of going to Quadrant Island, the two spent 5 days and 5 nights before arriving at another bustling island in rich light ocean span, Gemstone Archipelago. Gemstone Archipelago alone couldn't compare to Quadrant Island. Added together, their total area was more than 10 times that of Quadrant Island. Gazing into the distance, the ocean seemed to be embedded with dozens of different colored gems, emitting a beautiful radiance under the sunlight. Gemstone Archipelago was named after the colors of the islands, such as Azure Island, Fiery Island, and Orange Island. The two weren't too familiar with this place, so they landed on the edge of Azure Island. As soon as the two landed, a young woman ran over. Her cultivation base was neither high nor low, at early astral reaching realm. It's your first time at Gemstone Archipelago. My name is Wang Lan, and I can be your guide. If there's anything you don't know, you can ask me. The price is very cheap, only 5,000 mid-grade spirit stones. The young woman looked at Yi Qin and Murong Qingqing with some expectation. Yi Qin said, "How do you exchange mid-grade spirit stones and upper-grade spirit stones in Gemstone Archipelago?" Wang Lan honestly said, "There are many treasures in the deep sea but few spirit stones. In Gemstone Archipelago, one upper-grade spirit stone can be exchanged for 80 mid-grade spirit stones." Oh, a very high exchange rate. Generally speaking, one upper-grade spirit stone could be exchanged for at least 50 mid-grade spirit stones. 1 to 60 to 70 was the most common, and exceeding 70 was already very high. As for 1 to 100, it would only appear in auctions. The exchange rate in the market wasn't that high. Here are 40 upper-grade spirit stones, half of the price. When we don't need you anymore, we'll give you the other half. For now, take us to a high-grade artifact exchange site. The higher the better. Murong Qingqing handed over 10 upper-grade spirit stones to Wang Lan. Many thanks. Wang Lan accepted the upper-grade spirit stones with a joyful expression. Alright, take us there. Yi Qin said indifferently. This way. Wang Lan soared into the sky and brought the two toward the center of Gemstone Archipelago. Gemstone Archipelago, red islands are generally used for the trading of artifacts. Light red islands are the lowest, and generally only mid and upper-grade artifacts are traded. Fiery red islands are for upper-grade artifacts and peak upper-grade artifacts. Above the fiery red islands is the deep red islands, where you can occasionally see pseudo-extreme grade artifacts. It's the highest grade island in Gemstone Archipelago. On the way, Wang Lan explained to the two. Murong Qingqing asked, "You're saying that pseudo-extreme grade artifacts have appeared on the deep red islands?" Wang Lan nodded, "Depending on the mountain, depending on the river. There are many treasures in rich light ocean span, and people often obtain some extreme grade artifacts. They can't use them themselves and they don't feel safe keeping them on them. Therefore they sell them and buy things that they can use for themselves. If you two are lucky, you might be able to buy a suitable artifact. However, the price here is very high, so you two better be prepared." Yi Qin faintly smiled but didn't say anything. After some conversation, Yi Qin and Murong Qingqing learned that Wang Lan was born and raised in Gemstone Archipelago. Apart from cultivating, she was a guide for others. Although astral reaching experts didn't look good, they earned a lot of spirit stones. After all, those who could come to Gemstone Archipelago were basically Sea of Soul realm experts, and they would have tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of upper-grade spirit stones. They wouldn't haggle with you. An ordinary astral reaching expert would have a net worth of 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones at most, which would be close to 1,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Leading the way once would allow one to cultivate for a long time in peace. Of course, this kind of business wasn't easy to do. There were too many people competing with one another, so one had to rely on luck and discernment. In a short while, the three arrived at the Deep Red Island. The largest artifact trading place on the island is the Splendid Exchange at the center of the island. The minimum requirement to enter is Sea of Soul realm. Wang Lan said from the front. Arriving outside the Splendid Exchange, Murong Qingqing stopped and gave Wang Lan 40 upper-grade spirit stones. "You wait here. When we come out later, we'll need you to be our guide." 80 upper-grade spirit stones were nothing to Murong Qingqing. She had obtained more than 100 million upper-grade spirit stones in the ruins of the mysterious Yin King, which was hard to imagine for ordinary people. All right. Wang Lan obediently waited outside. This time she had encountered a big customer. Although she couldn't see through their cultivation bases, judging from their actions, they were at least rich late Sea of Soul realm experts. Entering the Splendid Exchange, the two were startled by the flow of people inside. There were too many Sea of Soul realm experts inside, numbering in the thousands. As far as the eye could see, the Splendid Exchange seemed to be packed with people. Heated discussions could be heard from far away. Wind Thunder Staff, upper-grade artifact, 300,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Smelting Fire Sword, upper-grade artifact, 320,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Dazzling Armor, upper-grade artifact, 520,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Divine Wind Boots, Upper grade artifact, 480,000 upper grade spirit stones. Among the treasures being sold in the glorious bazaar, even the worst ones were top high-ranked treasures. Of course, as Wang Lan had said, the treasures here were indeed expensive. Ordinary high-ranked treasures would not exceed 100,000 high-ranked spirit stones. Although the lowest grade of the treasures here were top high-ranked treasures, it was still more than 100,000 high-ranked spirit stones. Fortunately, one could bargain here. You could also compare the price. The higher the price was, the better it would be for bargaining. Walking through the entire splendid exchange, the two found a staircase leading to the second floor. There were 4 Sea of Soul Realm experts guarding there. Sorry, you can't go up without late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. The 4 obstructed a middle-aged man with mid-Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. I have spirit stones. The middle-aged man was unwilling. Sorry, there are rules. The guard's expression didn't change. Yi Qin and Murong Qingqing were baffled. Low cultivation base didn't mean low wealth. The rules of the splendid exchange were indeed strange. The two didn't stop and proceeded to the second floor. The 4 guards carefully sized up Yi Qin and Murong Qingqing and were astonished. They couldn't see through the two's cultivation base at all. There was only one explanation: the two were half-step kings. Rich Light Ocean Span had numerous half-step kings, and they were the true kings of this place. Please? The 4 opened the way. Upon arriving at the second floor, the two didn't see many people. It was quite spacious and empty. Based on a rough estimation, there were only a few hundred people here. However, the artifacts sold here were of high grade, all of them being semi-extreme grade artifacts. Moreover, the stalls were quite far apart, so there wouldn't be a crowd. Chapter 802. Although semi-extreme grade artifacts and peak upper grade artifacts didn't differ much in terms of grade, the price difference was more than 10 times, and some even reached 20 times. Even among semi-extreme grade artifacts, there was a huge difference in quality. Some rare semi-extreme grade artifacts weren't any weaker than pseudo-extreme grade artifacts, and their imitation targets were also famous extreme grade artifacts from ancient times. Murong Qingqing's goal in coming here was to find a pair of gloves that suited her. After all, compared to her cultivation and strength, her original gloves were a bit outdated. It would be fine if she fought against ordinary half-step kings, but if she encountered strongest half-step kings, it would be hard to avoid suffering some losses. Along the way, the two saw many semi-extreme grade artifacts. Glowing Snow Glove, price 3 million upper grade spirit stones. Silver Snake Blade, price 3,200,000 upper grade spirit stones. Blood Flame Spear, price 3,500,000 upper grade spirit stones. Water Moon Sky Armor, price 5 million upper grade spirit stones. In ancient times, there were many semi-extreme grade artifacts, and some of them might not even be an imitation of an extreme grade artifact. The main reason was that the grade of the materials was somewhat low, making it impossible to make an extreme grade artifact. Even inferior artifacts couldn't be made, so they became semi-extreme grade artifacts. Bone Eroding Evil Shadow, price 6 million upper grade spirit stones. After walking for a long time, the two finally found a pair of gloves that looked good. Excuse me, can I have a look at this pair of gloves? Murong Qingqing and Yi Qin walked over. Sure. The seller was a robust middle-aged man. His cultivation base was not low, being at the peak of late Sea of Soul Realm. However, facing Yi Qin and Murong Qingqing, who were both half-step kings, his cultivation base was not worth mentioning. He hurriedly took out the gloves and handed them over to Murong Qingqing. Taking the gloves, Murong Qingqing sensed the soul imprint inside. It wasn't that someone had used it before, but rather a basic precaution in the marketplace. It was to prevent some customers from saying that the items belonged to them, which would not be a pleasant thing. Imprinting a soul imprint on an artifact for sale. This way, as long as one wasn't a life and death king, they wouldn't be able to erase the soul imprint in a short period of time. Without one's own soul imprint, one wouldn't be able to bring out the artifact's full power. However, this was not a battle but a test of the quality of the gloves. Putting on the Bone Eroding Evil Shadow glove, Murong Qingqing clenched her fist slightly. All of a sudden, a huge amount of black chi poured out, twisting the space slightly. The surrounding environment was reflected inside, becoming blurry. Reaching out her hand, Murong Qingqing's right hand was like a steel blade, leaving a light claw mark in the air. The middle-aged man held his breath. Without a doubt, Murong Qingqing was a half-step king, and not an ordinary one at that. Although that attack just now wasn't aimed at him, he felt as if his soul was about to be pierced through. It was swift and tyrannical. Not good, it's only 2 to 3 grades higher than normal semi-extreme rank gloves. Murong Qingqing shook her head and took off the gloves. Yichen laughed, "No rush, I haven't finished the second floor yet." The bone-eroding evil shadow was a rare treasure for normal half-step king warriors. Unfortunately, Murong Qingqing needed better gloves. Even if they weren't pseudo-extreme rank, they couldn't be too bad. "You two don't want it?" The middle-aged man took over the gloves and asked carefully. Yichen waved his hand, "No need." Hearing him, the middle-aged man sat back down. He didn't dare to throw a tantrum in front of 2 half-step king warriors. The second floor was finished. All in all, there were a lot of good items, but none of them could enter Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing's eyes. The two also didn't splurge to buy something they didn't need. Third floor entrance. 4-peak Late Sea of Soul Realm guards stood there, with a sign on the side that said, "Only half-step king warriors are allowed to enter." Without any obstruction, the two went up to the third floor. Slightly squinting his eyes, Yi Chen encountered so many half-step king warriors at the same place. There were at least 40 to 50 half-step king warriors on the third floor. Most of them were elders, followed by middle-aged warriors. There were only a few young warriors. There were very few treasures for sale on the third floor. In total, there were only 10 of them. Beside each treasure, there were 4 or 5 people surrounding it. There were 2 places with the most people. It seemed that the treasures for sale should be of the very high quality. Otherwise, it wouldn't have attracted so many people. After a brief glance, the two of them flew past the first 8 artifacts and arrived at the last 2 artifacts. One of them was a semi-extreme grade saber. Judging from its intense saber chi, it didn't seem any weaker than a pseudo-extreme grade artifact. Moreover, its price was also very high, reaching 13 million upper-grade spirit stones. How could most half-step king warriors afford it? It was no wonder that everyone was looking at it without making up their minds to buy it. "Can you make it a bit cheaper? I only have 8 million upper-grade spirit stones." A burly man with a sturdy figure asked. The owner was an old man. He shook his head. "You know this saber's might. I won't sell it for less than 13 million. If you take it to the auction, the starting price will be at least 5 million. The star stone was an extremely rare treasure among the best quality materials. Normally, it could only be found in those fallen stars. If one could obtain a piece the size of a dragon's eye, it could be sold for a sky-high price, not to mention the armor made from a small portion of the star stone. But 33 million upper-grade spirit stones? Is too expensive? The middle-aged man's eyes turned red. The elder said slowly, "This shadow armor was supposed to be one of the most important items in this auction, but I have something urgent to do. That's why I'm selling it at a low price. Actually, my price is more than 35 million upper-grade spirit stones, which you can't afford." The middle-aged man was rendered speechless by the old man's words. That's right. A pseudo-extreme grade artifact fused with star stones. Even some life and death kings would be moved by it, not to mention them. Selling it for 33 million upper-grade spirit stones is definitely worth it. Murong Qingqing, besides the glove, you're also lacking a pseudo-extreme grade armor. Why don't you buy it? I think this Sky Star force field matches your dark force field quite well. It might even have an amplifying effect. Yi Chen transmitted his voice to Murong Qingqing. Murong Qingqing nodded. She pushed through the crowd and walked over, saying, "Boss, I want this shadow armor. Let me have a look." "You want it?" The elder looked at Murong Qingqing in astonishment. Seeing that the other party was a very young and beautiful girl, his astonishment became even greater. Although 33 million upper-grade spirit stones were not his price, he also knew that if the price was set too high, he wouldn't be able to sell it in a short period of time. He had something urgent to do and couldn't afford to delay. Even so, 33 million was not a small number but a huge number. Gemstone Island's auction house originally wanted to buy this shadow armor, but they were only willing to pay 30 million upper-grade spirit stones. Not bad. Murong Qingqing's expression was calm. All right. The elder opened the crystal counter and took out the shadow armor, handing it over to Murong Qingqing. Receiving the armor, Murong Qingqing held it with her left hand and placed her right hand on it. A faint purple-black electric current flickered in her palm. Yi Chen's eyes turned sharp. He could clearly sense that there were 2 different force fields fusing together. However, because the time was too short, it was hard to notice without careful observation. "I'll take it." The corner of Murong Qingqing's mouth curved. The star force field could indeed fuse with the dark force field and amplify it. For her, this shadow armor's value would increase by a few times. After all, her warrior force was not weak in the first place. With further amplification, it would be able to greatly affect the same level half-step kings, greatly increasing her strength. Chapter 803. This is the glorious exchanges. Don't tell me you plan on robbing others' treasures? Yi Qin stood there and released a frightening aura. Although his cultivation base was only mid-half-step king, he didn't fear anyone under life and death realm in terms of aura. Upon reaching half-step king realm, one's aura had already solidified and possessed a considerable destructive power. With Yi Qin at the center, the void suddenly shook and a transparent aura shockwave spread out. Even though everyone present was a half-step king, their faces couldn't help but change color. Some of the weaker ones couldn't help but take half a step back. Fortunately, the glorious exchanges were covered in restrictions and wouldn't collapse so easily. What a powerful aura! Among the crowd, a few young men and women were attracted by Yi Qin. They didn't expect Yi Qin's aura to be this powerful. Hee, you dare to offend me in Gemstone Islands? The old man squinted his eyes and sent out an aura not inferior to Yi Qin's, clashing with Yi Qin's aura shockwave. Creaking sounds echoed in the void as if the void couldn't bear the collision of the two's auras. There are only two strongest half-step kings in Gemstone Islands, and Dark Light King is one of them. Rumor has it that even strongest half-step kings don't dare to face his Dark Light Palm Arts head-on. Now that I've seen it, it's indeed powerful. Just his aura alone is enough to make people despair. Dark Light King is a genuine strongest half-step king. I wonder where this kid comes from. He doesn't seem to know Dark Light King, or else he wouldn't have clashed with him. Youngsters are all prideful. However, this kid's cultivation base isn't at the peak, probably mid-half-step king. But his aura is so powerful. There are many reasons why one's aura is powerful. This kid's aura contains a peerlessly sharp sword intent. He should have an advantage in sword intent that ordinary people can't reach. Yeah, makes sense. But he's still too impulsive. Clashing with a veteran's strongest half-step king is simply asking for trouble. Everybody discussed in low voices. So you are a strongest half-step king warrior. No wonder you are so arrogant. Cultivation wasn't everything. Although Dark Bright King's cultivation base was a high-level half-step king, it didn't mean that he was a strongest half-step king. However, Yi Qin could sense his strength from his aura. Hearing the crowd's discussion, he immediately understood that this was yet another strongest half-step king. It's not too late to regret now. Otherwise, the Gemstone Islands will be your burial ground. The Dark Light King sneered. His reputation in the Gemstone Islands was great. Coupled with his ruthless methods, there were not many who dared to oppose him. If this wasn't the glorious exchanges, he wouldn't be polite and would have directly killed Yi Qin, throwing him into the sea to feed the fishes. We don't know whose grave it will be, but for now you better shut up. Yi Qin's eyes shone brightly like two peerless gems emitting sword light. Crick. The void trembled and a boundless and frightening sword intent rushed toward the Dark Light King. The Dark Light King didn't expect that Yi Qin would still have strength to spare. He had no choice but to admit that the latter's sword will was higher than his martial will. In terms of aura, he couldn't gain the upper hand. With a muffled snort, the martial will in his sea of soul also rushed out, forming an invisible membrane in front of him. But there was no soul-shaking explosion. The Dark Light King's body swayed, and his left foot retreated half a step. On the other hand, Yi Qin didn't move an inch. The Dark Light King's skinny face was a bit embarrassed. Although his aura and martial will weren't top-notch among the strongest half-step kings, they weren't weak either. Yet he had lost to Yi Qin by half a step. This made his old face unsightly as if he had been slapped in the face. You're courting death. The Dark Light King squeezed out a few words with a cold expression. A layer of black radiance appeared on his right hand, and the temperature gradually rose. This was a sign that he was about to use Dark Light Palm Arts. The Dark Light King is about to take action. This is the glorious exchanges. Everybody was startled. I'll accompany you to the end. Yi Qin's figure didn't move, but the evil vanquishing sword at his waist began to ring. A sharp sword chi seeped out of the scabbard like a bone-scraping steel blade. What are you doing? Just as the two were about to take action, the manager of the glorious exchanges finally appeared. An embroidered robed old man walked up the stairs, followed by two middle-aged men. All three were half-step kings, and the embroidered robed old man had the highest cultivation base, a high-level half-step king. The one who spoke was precisely the embroidered robed old man. Quickly walking over, the old man's face turned gloomy as he said, "This is the glorious exchanges, not a place for you to fight." "So it's manager he." The black radiance on Dark Light King's right hand dimmed. With his hand behind his back, he forced an unsightly smile. "Are you still not going to stop?" The embroidered robed old man's sharp gaze glared at Yi Chen. "Which eye of yours saw that he was about to take action?" Murong Qingqing felt that the embroidered robed old man was too overbearing. Yi Chen hadn't even unsheathed his sword, so how could he take action? Instead he seemed to be siding with the Dark Light King. Clang. Yi Chen coldly glanced at the Dark Light King, then glanced at the embroidered robed old man. The evil vanquishing sword unsheathed by an inch on its own, then fiercely stabbed in. The sword cry was incomparably ear-piercing, as if someone was cutting glass with a sharp blade. The embroidered robed old man's face turned ashen. Although Yi Chen didn't say anything, this action was undoubtedly a provocation, not taking him seriously at all. "What's going on?" The embroidered robed old man turned his head and asked Dark Light King. The Dark Light King sneered, "This kid has no eyes, daring to compete with me over the treasure. Where would I put my old face? That's why I spoke out to teach him a lesson. I didn't expect him to be so extreme, wanting to take action against me. If it weren't for me having misgivings about your glorious exchanges, I would have killed him long ago." "You're really lying through your teeth. I've already bought this shadow armor, but you wanted to snatch it. Does the glorious exchanges allow others to snatch other people's goods?" Murong Qingqing's face turned frosty. Yi Chen indifferently said, "Everyone here can testify." "Testify? Who can testify for you?" The Dark Light King sneered as his gaze swept over the crowd. Seeing the Dark Light King's gaze sweeping over them, everyone shifted their gazes. Although some of them weren't cowards, they didn't want to offend the Dark Light King for no reason. If they wanted to live long and well, some things were better left unattended if possible. Finally, the Dark Light King's gaze fell on the old man selling the shadow armor. The old man didn't shift his gaze and his expression didn't change as he said, "This old man is only selling artifacts. It belongs to whoever paid the spirit stones." "It belongs to whoever paid the spirit stones?" "She hasn't paid yet." The Dark Light King revealed a confident smile. "Indeed, but I've already agreed to sell it to her." The old man was in a hurry and didn't want to cause more trouble. Of course, he wouldn't lie to his conscience, so he could only tell the truth. "Don't worry, I'll pay however much she paid, plus 500,000 upper-grade spirit stones for you." The Dark Light King had seen the shadow armor yesterday, but he didn't have that many upper-grade spirit stones on him at that time. He was short by 10 million. In order to obtain the armor, he had used his connections and borrowed a lot of upper-grade spirit stones. 2 hours ago he had finally gathered 34 million upper-grade spirit stones. But what made him angry was that someone had beaten him to it and almost bought it. This was also the reason why he was so angry. "This doesn't seem appropriate." The old man was a bit embarrassed. "What's inappropriate? You haven't sold the armor yet. This doesn't violate the rules of glorious exchanges, does it?" The Dark Light King looked at the old man. The old man glanced at Yi Chen and faintly nodded. "The exchange has its rules. As long as you don't violate them, it's fine." Since the Dark Light King is willing to pay 500,000 upper-grade spirit stones, sell it to him. The old man was the chief steward of glorious exchanges, and his strength was close to a strongest, half-step king. The Dark Light King was famous in Gemstone Islands. The Dark Light King is very powerful. You'd better not be careless. If possible, it's best not to clash head-on. His Dark Light palm arts are extremely powerful, and even my innate ability is somewhat unable to bear it. After so many years, his Dark Light palm arts should have improved by another level. Yi Chen said, "So, you've exchanged blows with him?" Yi Chen wasn't too clear on how powerful a strongest, half-step king was, but he was certain that they couldn't do anything to him. "You've entered half-step king realm?" Huang Mei faintly nodded and suddenly exclaimed. She hadn't paid much attention to Yi Chen's cultivation base. Just a moment ago she unintentionally sized him up and discovered that Yi Chen was already a half-step king. Yi Chen was already unfathomable when he was at the peak of late Sea of Soul realm. How strong would he be after entering half-step king realm? Hee hee. Chuckling, Huang Mei said, "Seems like I was worrying for nothing." In truth, although Huang Mei felt that Yi Chen wasn't someone to be trifled with, if she went all out, she still had the confidence to defeat Yi Chen. After all, strongest, half-step kings were not just for show. Moreover, she also had a pseudo-supreme grade artifact. A strongest, half-step king combined with a pseudo-supreme grade artifact could erupt with an unimaginable battle strength. It should be known that pseudo-supreme grade artifacts were too high-end for half-step kings. Ordinary half-step kings couldn't use them more than a few times. On the other hand, the Zhenyuan of strongest, half-step kings was incomparably deep, allowing them to bring out the might of pseudo-supreme grade artifacts to a whole new level. However, now that Yi Chen was a half-step king, his strength was bound to increase by several folds. Dark Light King would most likely be at a disadvantage. Of course, she didn't know that Yi Chen was different from others. Others only had more Zhenyuan and purer Zhenyuan, but Yi Chen had upgraded his Green Lotus Sword arts to heaven grade. Moreover, he had unearthed a half-baked sword domain. Be it in group battles or one-on-one battles, he was a frightening existence. After chatting for a cup of tea's worth of time, Huang Mei left. A few days later, not only did Murong Qingqing erase the soul imprint on the shadow armor, she also imprinted her own soul imprint on it. As a pseudo-supreme grade artifact, the shadow armor could be adjusted to a certain degree. For example, since Murong Qingqing was a female, the shadow armor had become a lot slimmer, and her chest area had 2 protrusions. Wearing it on the body wouldn't cause any discomfort. In the courtyard, Yi Chen smiled. "How about testing the heavenly star force field first?" "Alright." Murong Qingqing didn't use the dark force field. Instead, she poured her demonic power into the shadow armor and activated its heavenly star force field. Pop. A transparent ripple spread out. "You too, I'm Yu Bingxin's auntie Yu Lingshuang. Many thanks for saving my life. If there's any trouble, I won't shirk my duty." Yi Chen said, "It's nothing." After chatting for a while, both sides stopped. During this time, Yu Lingshuang noticed that the Dark Light King was occasionally staring at Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing with overflowing killing intent. She creased her brows and said, "Bingxin, I'm afraid your benefactor's situation isn't good. I can see that the Dark Light King has a big grudge with him. What should we do?" Yu Bingxin didn't notice this and immediately became anxious. She had also heard of the Dark Light King's name. Under Life and Death realm, very few were his opponents. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing had offended him and their fate was grim. It would be difficult for them to leave Gemstone Islands. "Auntie, save them." Yu Bingxin pulled Yu Lingshuang's sleeve. "Even if you don't say it, I won't watch them die. It's just that, with the Dark Light King's strength, I'm not sure if I can repel him. I can't protect them forever, unless he's willing to come with us to Moonlight Island as a guest. I believe he won't dare to linger around Moonlight Island for a while. Once he leaves, he can leave without a trace." Yu Lingshuang was a rare genius of Moonlight Island. Since she dared to protect Yi Chen, she was naturally a strongest, half-step king. Hearing her auntie's words, Yu Bingxin heaved a sigh of relief. Once the auction was over, she would certainly persuade Yi Chen to go to Moonlight Island. After a cup of tea's worth of time, the auction house was nearly full. The auctioneer stood on the stage and said a few words. Then he waved his hand and 2 beautiful maids walked up with a round plate. The auction had begun. Just as Wang Lan had said, the lowest grade items were peak upper grade treasures. The first item was a dagger radiating a cold light. Its color was bright red as if it had been soaked in blood. The starting bid was 150,000 upper grade spirit stones. After a round of bidding, the dagger was bought by one person for 350,000 upper grade spirit stones. With dozens of items sold, the auction entered its climax. The following items were all half-step extreme grade treasures, incomparably precious spirit herbs, rare materials whose names had never been heard of, or artifacts that everyone was going crazy over. The 37th item, a heart-protecting flower. On the stage, the auctioneer's face was glowing as he called out the next item. Heart-protecting flower. Yi Chen smiled bitterly. Before breaking through to Half-Step King realm, he had always wanted to find a heart-protecting flower. However, his wish had never been fulfilled. Who would have thought that he would see one after breaking through to Half-Step King realm? It was simply a freak accident. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. More or less. Be it in terms of wealth or strength, Dark Light King was not someone ordinary could compare to. Even if he didn't threaten you, you wouldn't be able to compete with him. Moreover, if you provoked him, he might find an opportunity to kill you and seize your gloves. Seeing Dark Light King's bid, those who originally had some thoughts turned silent. Murong, it seems like we're going to have to contend with Dark Light King again. Yi Chen laughed. Murong Qingqing also laughed and raised her hand. 12 million. You again. Dark Light King fiercely looked at Murong Qingqing, his gaze cold and emotionless. What? Can't afford to play? Yi Chen flicked his fingers. 15 million. Dark Light King turned his head. He currently had 34 million upper-grade spirit stones, and the other party had already spent more than 30 million. He didn't believe that he couldn't compete with Murong Qingqing. 16 million. This time the bidder was not Murong Qingqing, but a tall and sturdy square-faced man. This person had extremely long arms and thick palms. With a single glance, one could tell that his martial arts were extremely powerful. It's Crimson Fire King. This is going to be interesting. This square-faced man was extremely famous in Gemstone Islands. He was one of the few experts under strongest half-step kings. He was equivalent to Jin Wanshuang, who had teamed up with Yi Chen a few months ago, or perhaps even stronger. Since Crimson Fire King dared to compete with Dark Light King, he had to make a great decision. After all, the gloves were something that could only be chanced upon and not sought. Once he obtained them, his strength would definitely increase rapidly. 18 million. Murong Qingqing didn't raise the price to an outrageous level. She felt that 20 million was more or less the bottom line of these people. 19 million. Dark Light King hesitated for a moment before adding another million. 19,500,000. Crimson Fire King only added 500,000. 20 million. Murong Qingqing made another bid. Damn it. Dark Light King glanced at Murong Qingqing and his eyes flickered. He actually stopped bidding, seemingly giving up. Yi Chen observed his expression and naturally knew that Dark Light King hadn't given up. Perhaps this person planned to kill both of them. That way he wouldn't have to pay any spirit stones. 20,500,000. Red Flame King fiercely gritted his teeth. His entire fortune was only 18 million spirit stones, and some of his treasures could only be exchanged for 3 million spirit stones at most. This was already his limit. Any more and he would have nothing left. After bidding, he stared at Murong Qingqing. 21 million. Murong Qingqing indifferently said. Off. Heavily spitting out a mouthful of turbid qi, Crimson Fire King's face flickered with anger, but he didn't say anything else. The auctioneer didn't dare to speak too confidently. What a joke. Some of the people in the auction house had very deep backgrounds. If he spoke too confidently, the forces behind them would definitely come to the auction house. After all, although he was indebted to Huang Mei, he had to obtain the sword-forging technique Jade Scroll. 50 million. Putting down the teacup, Yi Chen stretched out his right hand. Him again. Steward, he was furious. So, young Master Yi is also interested in the sword-forging art. Huang Mei looked at Yi Chen and transmitted her voice to him. Yi Chen said, I'm sorry, it's rare for me to be interested in this sword-forging technique Jade Strip. How about this? After I win it, I'll share everything apart from supreme-grade sword-forging knowledge with you. I don't think you have too much hope for the supreme-grade sword-forging knowledge inside. Right, the knowledge of a damaged supreme-grade sword-forging is of little use. Since that's the case, I'll help you achieve your dream. Immediately, Huang Mei gave up. 51 million. While bidding, steward, he transmitted his voice to Yi Chen. Little brother, I'm Glorious Exchanges steward he. Previously, there seemed to be some conflict between us, but as the steward of Glorious Exchanges, I have no choice in some matters. If little brother gives up, I can overstep my authority and give you a Glorious Exchanges token. In the future, as long as you set up a stall in my glorious exchanges, your fees will be waived. The fees charged by glorious exchanges were not low. The first floor was 5%, the second floor was 4%, and the third floor was 3%. In other words, selling a treasure worth 10 million could save 300,000. Once or twice didn't seem like much, but after a long time, it could save a lot of spiritual stones. Yi Qin sneered. This steward, he was really insincere if he wanted to send him away with a glorious exchanges token. Moreover, his tone was more or less threatening, as if he was saying, "Don't be so shameless." Of course, if it was someone else they might agree, but Yi Qin didn't need to think about it. He wouldn't be staying in Gemstone Islands for long anyway, so the glorious exchanges token was useless to him. 52 million. Yi Qin continued bidding. It seems like little brother doesn't want to give face to glorious exchanges. Steward, his face darkened, a hint of killing intent appearing at the corner of his mouth. Of course I have to give face to glorious exchanges, but you don't have the qualifications to represent glorious exchanges. Yi Qin said sarcastically. I hope you won't regret it. Steward, he gritted his teeth and said. He didn't try to persuade Yi Qin anymore. When the price rose to 56 million, Steward, he gave up. He could only mobilize 50 to 60 million spiritual stones. In fact, the price he had in mind was not more than 60 million. After all, he had no idea how useful the knowledge in the swordsmithing art was. If he didn't buy it, it would be a great loss if it wasn't worth the price. 58 million. In the end, there was only one person left to compete with Yi Qin. If not for an upper-grade storage ring and many mid-grade and low-grade storage rings, Yi Qin wouldn't have been able to store so many materials. After buying the materials, Yi Qin and Murong Qingqing prepared to leave. There were too many powers in Gemstone Islands, and staying here wouldn't bring them any good. Lord Darklight King, they've left. In the tea house, a person walked to Darklight King's side and reported. Well done. Darklight King put down the teacup in his hand and abruptly stood up, his face overflowing with killing intent. As a strongest, half-step king, Darklight King's potential was naturally not weak. Of course, Yi Qin didn't dare confirm that he had relied on his own potential to become a strongest, half-step king. Elysium was boundless, and there might be some heavenly treasures that could increase one's potential. He die. Obsidian palm. With his strength rising to the second layer, Darkbright King roared and slammed his palm toward Murong Qingqing. The enormous palm imprint blotted out the sun, and a fiery chi wave swept out in all directions, evaporating the ocean waves. Swish. Not wanting to face Darkbright King head-on, Murong Qingqing flapped her black bat wings and instantly disappeared. With her natural advantage in speed and the speed amplification of the shadow armor, Darkbright King would have a hard time locking onto her. Where are you going? Darkbright King thrust out dozens of palms in a row, sending out fiery palm energies. Swish, 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 swish. Murong Qingqing's figure flickered unceasingly in the void, dodging palm energies one after another. Her extreme speed left everyone dumbfounded. Demonic finger. Suddenly, Murong Qingqing attacked Darkbright King with her finger. Who could have expected that after reaching the second layer of life and death chamber, Darkbright King's battle strength would be no small matter. With a single palm, he slapped away the black sun-like demonic finger. The power of the sky demon finger brushed against the surface of the ocean and left a terrifying mark. Finally, with a loud bang, it exploded and created a huge crater with a diameter of tens of miles. Soul-extinguishing wave. Murong Qingqing felt that her demonic power was about to be exhausted. Up until now, she had barely used any of her trump cards. Most of the time, she was using ordinary attacks to contend against Darkbright King. It was not intentional, but the shadow armor and purple flame demonic gloves consumed too much demonic power. If not for the fact that she had activated the shadow armor in the middle of the battle, her demonic power would have been exhausted long ago. Even so, after using the soul extinguishing wave, she didn't even have 10% of her demonic power left. The soul extinguishing wave's range was too wide, and its speed was too fast. Dark Bright King knew that he couldn't dodge, so he circulated his martial will and arranged a will barrier in front of him. Boom, boom, boom. The will barrier blocked the soul attack, and the protective Zhen Yuan blocked the soul extinguishing wave's energy attack. Dark Bright King wasn't injured in the slightest. Demonic fist. Suddenly Murong Qingqing's speed soared, and she instantly appeared before Dark Bright King. Not good. Dark Bright King pushed his Zhen Yuan to the limit, and a flickering black light burst out. His whole body was like a black sun burning fiercely. Large patches of black flames surged out, containing a terrifying power capable of scorching the earth. After all, it would be hard to avoid encountering strongest half-step kings in the future. This duel would allow them to clearly witness the strength of a strongest half-step king, as well as the strength of Murong Qingqing. Now that Murong Qingqing's demonic power was exhausted and she was injured, Yi Chen naturally had to step forward. Murong Qingqing faintly nodded and retreated to Yi Chen's side. What's going on? Don't tell me she's giving up? What else can she do? Can't you see that her demonic power is exhausted? Without demonic power, anyone can kill her. You're right. Demonic power is different from Zhen Yuan, and there's basically no pill that can replenish it. This is also one of the shortcomings of the perfect demonic human bloodline. Seeing Murong Qingqing retreat, the crowd sighed inwardly. Dark Bright King was Dark Bright King after all, not someone ordinary people could deal with. Even after exhausting all means, he could only delay for a short period of time. At this moment, who among the two could stop him? That kid was probably even worse. Dark Bright King had only suffered a minor injury. He quickly flew over and coldly said, "Not bad, you actually managed to injure me at the last moment. Unfortunately, your endurance is a bit lacking. That was merely a warm-up for me. Then let's start now." Treading on the void, Yi Chen walked out step by step, stopping 10 li away from Dark Bright King. "Start? With just you?" Dark Bright King laughed heartily as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. "No way. Don't tell me he's even stronger than that woman? His cultivation base is only mid-half-step king realm, not even as high as mine. He probably thinks that Dark Bright King has consumed a lot of Zhen Yuan and is injured, so he wants to take turns to defeat him." Fart. This kind of injury is nothing to Dark Bright King. Although this kid's cultivation base is similar to that woman's, one has Zhen Yuan while the other has demonic power. They are simply incomparable. In terms of martial skills, Demonic Power Fist is incomparably tyrannical. His profound martial skills are already not bad at all. Only his sword intent is a bit more powerful. Unfortunately, in a situation where the difference in willpower isn't too great, it won't be able to play a decisive role. Everybody's mouths were wide open, unable to understand where Yi Chen's confidence came from. What? Yu Bingxin was a bit worried. Dark Bright King was frighteningly powerful. Murong Qingqing had exhausted all her means, yet she couldn't do anything to him. In the end, she would exhaust her demonic power and retreat. Yi Chen would be in danger. Let's watch first. Yu Lingshuang's expression was grave. If Yi Chen couldn't defeat Dark Bright King, she would have to lend a hand. Therefore she had to grasp the perfect timing. Let me see your true strength. Among the crowd, only Huang Mei had complete confidence in Yi Chen and said inwardly. Chapter 8:11. How is this possible? Yu Lingshuang and Yu Bingxin were not the only ones shocked. Apart from Huang Mei and Murong Qingqing, everyone else was astonished to the extreme. They even wondered if they were seeing things or if they were hallucinating. Otherwise, how could such a scene happen? Dark Light King was sent flying by Yi Chen's sword. Dark Bright King's cultivation base was 3 levels higher than Yi Chen's. Yi Chen was a mid-half-step king, and above him was the high level. Then there was the first layer of Life and Death Chamber and the second layer of Life and Death Chamber. Just the difference in cultivation base alone was enough to widen the gap between the two. Dark Light King might not be able to injure Yi Chen with a single palm strike, but he should at least be evenly matched. Who could have imagined that Yi Chen would be so frightening, gaining the upper hand in a single exchange. Yi Qin indifferently smiled but didn't pursue his opponent. When he was at peak late Sea of Soul realm, he had the strength of a strongest half-step king with the Thunder Disaster Sword in hand. Now that he had reached mid-half-step king realm, even without the evil shattering sword, he was confident that he could contend against the Dark Light King, who was at the second layer of Life and Death Chamber. Adding the evil shattering sword, the result could be easily imagined. As for the advantage in terms of cultivation base, Yi Qin was indeed much weaker than Dark Light King. However, one shouldn't forget that Yi Qin's profound martial skill, Waning Moon, was his trump card. No matter how powerful Dark Light King's Dark Light Palm arts were, they were still much weaker. In terms of will, Yi Qin's Destruction Sword intent had long since reached the 5th step, which was equivalent to an ordinary 6th step sword intent. On the other hand, Dark Light King's martial will was merely at the peak of the 4th step. A gap of 1.5 step in will was even harder to make up than cultivation base. In a situation where both sides had similar fighting strength, the one with the higher will would usually have the last laugh. As for the reason, it was very simple. Humans were made of flesh and blood, and after a long battle, their condition would inevitably decline. For example, their Zhen Yuan would decrease, and as long as they didn't die, their will would not fluctuate too much. It could be said that the strength of one's will determine one's potential. As expected, I've really met someone who has the chance to become a legend. Huang Mei smiled faintly. Since ancient times, there would be many unparalleled experts born in every era. However, there would only be 1 or 2 legendary figures in every era. Currently, there were no legendary figures in this era. Although those titled monarchs were strong, they were only considered as unparalleled masters and not legendary figures. Chapter 8:12. You think this kid is easy to deal with? Dark Light King frantically defended against the flying swords while furiously sending a Zhen Yuan transmission back. It had to be said that the second layer of Life and Death Challenge was indeed the second layer of Life and Death Challenge. His protective Zhen Yuan was exceptionally strong. Even if he missed 1 or 2 Zhen Yuan flying swords, they wouldn't be able to injure him for the time being, unless the real body of the Thunder Disaster Sword arrived. However, Dark Light King was no fool. How could he allow the Thunder Disaster Sword to approach him? You, Dark Light King, have shaken Gemstone Islands for decades. You must have a lot of trump cards. Otherwise you would have been replaced long ago. The head steward seemed confident that Dark Light King could make a comeback. Seems like you've studied me quite well. Dark Light King coldly snorted, not bothering to explain. Ding 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 ding. 15 flying swords crazily attacked Dark Light King, especially the true body of the Thunder Disaster Sword. Each strike was like a thunderbolt, splashing sparks everywhere. Black Star Explosion. Defending for a long time would lead to a loss. Dark Light King naturally understood this principle. After knocking away the true body of the Thunder Disaster Sword, he roared and suddenly curled up his body. As his body curled up, a blazing black radiance erupted and condensed outside his body in 1/100th of a second. In the next moment, the Dark Light King was enveloped by a 2-meter-wide scorched earth ball. The surface of the earth ball was shockingly hot, and its hardness was unimaginable. The Zhen Yuan flying swords could only create sparks and shallow scratches on its surface. Explode! A deep roar came from inside the earthen ball. Rumble! The scorched earth ball was like a small star as it exploded with a loud rumble. A powerful impact swept out in all directions, not only destroying Yi Chen's defensive sword art, but also breaking the tip of the Thunder Disaster Sword. As for the other Zhen Yuan flying swords, they had long since been annihilated, no longer existing. Rip! A beam of blue cold light shot towards him. Yi Chen reached out 2 fingers and caught it. It was the tip of the Thunder Disaster Sword. Fusion of fire and earth profound. Yi Chen's eyesight was extremely sharp, and he could tell that Dark Light King's Black Star Explosion was a move created from the explosion of stars. In Elysium, Life and Death realm experts could roam the starry sky and descend upon beautiful stars. Some of these stars were very small, and Life and Death Kings could easily destroy them. However, when a small star exploded, ordinary Life and Death Kings would retreat 3 feet, fearing that they would be caught in the center of the explosion. Although Dark Light King's Black Star Explosion was crude, it was undoubtedly frightening to experts of the same level.